Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Destined Antagonist. I refuse to annul the engagement. Chapter 61. On the other side. In the eastern region of southern Shenzhou, countless mountains rise and fall, with magnificent immortal mountains standing tall, surrounded by mist-like tightly clustered silk. Various rare birds and beasts with fierce bloodlines can be seen everywhere, flying around the immortal peaks and mountain streams. There are also various strange and mystical scenes, never ending. It is as if it is a land of immortals, making people yearn for it. However, the most noteworthy thing is that amidst this endless immortal mist, there lies a broken sword that is tens of thousands of feet long. The shattered blade is covered with ancient immortal patterns. These peculiar patterns give birth to a vast and awe-inspiring aura. The Great Luo Immortal Sword. It is said that this is the sword used by the Great Luo Immortal, who was renowned throughout the realms in ancient times, when he slashed through the heavens. Its rank is difficult to estimate. And beneath the Great Luo Immortal Sword lies the Great Luo Sacred Ground. The Great Luo Sacred Ground has inherited the immortal law of the Great Luo Immortal for nearly tens of millions of years in southern Shenzhou. Its terrifying heritage and formidable strength make it one of the top existences in the Celestial Wonders realm. However, during ancient times, the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect rose suddenly and surpassed the Great Luo Sacred Ground, becoming the #1 overlord in southern Shenzhou. The Great Luo Sacred Ground has always been resentful about this and has fought and conquered many times, hoping to suppress the other party's arrogance and reclaim the throne of being the #1 in southern Shenzhou. But the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect is too mysterious and too powerful. Even the Great Luo Sacred Ground has been repeatedly frustrated, with few victories and many losses. In the Great Luo Temple, the true divine realm will open in 3 days. Are you ready? The Great Luo Saint Lord asked indifferently. In front of him, there was a distorted and chaotic dim light curtain, naturally exuding an evil and chilling aura, making people shudder. The dim light curtain rippled like the surface of water, and a deep voice sounded, "Rest assured, within 3 days, I will be able to break through this barrier and send our clan's genius into the true divine realm. I hope you can keep your word." The Great Luo Saint Lord's expression was calm. "This is our first cooperation, and I hope to see your sincerity. As long as the geniuses of the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect all die in the true divine realm, and the Desolate Heaven Goddess is captured alive, I will agree to cooperate with you, open the space passage, and gradually guide you into the Celestial Wonders realm. It's a deal." As the deep voice dissipated, the dim light curtain slowly dissipated as well. The Great Luo Saint Lord looked at the dispersing light curtain, and his hazy eyes became profound. You see, if he hadn't come out of seclusion early and sensed the ancient aura emanating from the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect, the true divine relic would have been monopolized by the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect. Now, led by the Great Luo Sacred Ground, along with the other 2 sects, they have barely secured some spots to enter the relic. This Desolate Heaven Divine Sect is too mysterious. Now, with various signs of inheritance appearing, coupled with the dominance of the Desolate Heaven Goddess, they must be eliminated as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Great Luo Sacred Ground would be in danger. At this moment, a report came from outside the temple, reporting to the Saint Lord, "The people from the Extreme Tao Sect and the Ancient Abyss Holy Sect have arrived." Understood. The Great Luo Saint Lord responded, his eyes slightly lowered. Although they guaranteed that they would fulfill his requirements, it's always better to be prepared for all possibilities. Publicly, they would unite with the Extreme Tao Sect and the Ancient Abyss Holy Sect, and secretly, they would have assistance from another party. With a two-pronged approach, even if the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect had extraordinary abilities, the expedition to the true divine relic would only end in complete annihilation. The Great Luo Saint Lord revealed a cold smile. Then, he walked out of the temple and headed to the main hall for the meeting. Inside the main hall, the elders of the Extreme Tao Sect and the Ancient Dark Holy Sect, as well as the geniuses from their respective factions, along with the geniuses from the Great Luo Holy Land, stood in 3 separate groups, their powerful auras naturally spreading and overlapping, creating a terrifying atmosphere. Moreover, in the eyes of each genius, there seemed to be a chilling intent to kill. The Great Luo Holy Lord stepped into the main hall. The elders from both sides and the geniuses all bowed and saluted. "Greetings, Great Luo Holy Lord." The Great Luo Holy Lord nodded in response and looked at the elders from both sides, asking calmly, "Is everything ready?" In response to the Great Luo Holy Lord, everything is prepared and we can proceed to the true God's secret realm at any time. The elders from both sides nodded in agreement. However, the elder from the extreme Tao sect hesitated for a moment and said in a deep voice, "There is something suspicious that may require careful consideration." "What is it?" "According to the information sent back by our disciples, a genius from the Eastern Divine Continent's Chengsheng Zhang family came to enter the true God's secret realm but was driven away by the Desolate Heaven Divine sect's Maipo." The elder from the extreme Tao sect said in a deep voice, "Over a month ago, the Desolate Heaven Divine sect's goddess took the initiative to propose a marriage alliance with Zhongzhan from the Zhang family, but was coldly rejected by the other party. The relationship between the two factions should not be too harmonious. It is normal for the Zhang family genius to be driven away. But the Zhang family is still a long-standing family in the Eastern Divine Continent, and their strength should not be underestimated. The fact that the Zhang family genius traveled such a long distance cannot be ignored." Upon hearing this, the great Luo Holy Lord narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment before shaking his head slowly and saying in a deep voice, "I'm afraid it's not that simple. I am more inclined to believe that the Desolate Heaven Divine sect has already reached a cooperation with the Zhang family. The matter you mentioned may have been deliberately done by the other party to deceive us." The great Luo Holy Lord's voice turned cold. The elders from both sides looked at each other, full of doubt. If they had already reached a cooperation, why not just hide and wait for the opportunity to reveal themselves? Why go through all this trouble? Are they treating them like fools? The expression on the great Luo Holy Lord's face turned cold as he said, "I suspect that the Desolate Heaven Divine sect has already learned about our plan, which is why they asked for the help of the Zhang family. But the Zhang family only sent one genius. Even if that genius is powerful, they cannot change the situation." The elder from the ancient Dark Holy sect said in confusion. If they have really reached a cooperation, would the Zhang family only send one genius? The great Luo Holy Lord sneered. The elders from both sides' faces changed slightly, filled with unease. If it was only the Desolate Heaven Divine sect, the geniuses from their three factions joining forces would naturally have absolute confidence in keeping all the disciples of the Desolate Heaven Divine sect in the true God's secret realm, and they could even control the Desolate Heaven Goddess in one fell swoop, using her to threaten the Desolate Heaven Divine sect and even extract the secrets of Desolate Heaven. But if the Zhang family got involved, their actions would probably not go as smoothly as they imagined. After all, the Chengsheng Zhang family was an ancient family with a history of millions of years. Although it had declined in recent years, it still possessed profound foundations that were difficult for ordinary people to estimate. Its terrifying strength still far surpassed that of the extreme Tao sect and the ancient Dark Holy sect, and it could almost be on par with the great Luo Holy Land. Moreover, in recent times, the Zhang family had given birth to two astonishing geniuses. If those two geniuses also appeared in the true God's secret realm, the consequences would be unpredictable. However, the great Luo Holy Lord did not care. He was prepared, so even if the Zhang family really appeared, the outcome would not change in the slightest. After giving the elders from both sides a faint glance, the great Luo Holy Lord said in a calm voice, "There is no need to worry too much about the Zhang family. With the geniuses from our three factions joining forces, even if the Zhang family genius appears, they will only meet their death." Then, the great Luo Holy Lord no longer exchanged pleasantries. He looked at everyone and said in a deep voice, "I believe that the purpose of this operation has already been explained to you by the leaders of the extreme Tao sect and the ancient Dark Holy sect. I won't waste any more words. The Desolate Heaven Divine sect has been growing stronger recently and has the ambition to dominate the southern Divine Continent. We must be on guard. While our priority in entering the true God's secret realm is to seize opportunities, that is the business of the geniuses from all factions. Your primary task is to hunt down the disciples of the Desolate Heaven Divine sect and ambush the Desolate Heaven Goddess. If there is a chance, capture the Desolate Heaven Goddess alive and obtain the secrets of Desolate Heaven from the Desolate Heaven Divine sect." The geniuses from the three factions, nearly 200 in total, responded in unison, "Yes." In a gray and white space, Zhongzhan took out the key to the true divine realm. The surface of the divine token had a fierce dragon head, shining and flickering, emitting a hidden and mysterious aura, as if resonating with something. Rubbing the divine token with his fingers, Zhongzhan stared at the pillar in the sky, lost in thought. Should I open it now? The geniuses of the desolate heaven divine sect have gathered here. If he opens the true divine realm now, he may not necessarily gain an advantage. But if he doesn't open it now, wouldn't the key in his hand be wasted? Daddy. The little girl tugged at Zhongzhan, her big eyes gleaming with cunning, and whispered, "Give me the key, I'll take Daddy inside." Zhongzhan glanced at the little girl, his expression suddenly complicated. It's no wonder he had been on guard against her all along, thinking she was a reincarnation of an old monster. Who would believe that such a cunning true dragon hatchling was only a month old? As for her claim that she had a way to take him inside, he didn't doubt it too much. After all, this little girl was a true dragon hatchling, her bloodline contained the heritage of the entire dragon race, and having some extraordinary means was nothing out of the ordinary. After thinking for a moment, Zhongzhan chose to believe her and handed the key to the little girl. In fact, up until now, the little girl had not shown any inappropriate behavior, which greatly dispelled his resentment and wariness. The little girl reached out her chubby little hands and took the divine token, casually breaking it in half. Zhongzhan's eyelids twitched. This divine token was as hard as a divine artifact. Even he, with his body breaking through the limits and forging an indestructible thunder body, would find it difficult to break the divine token. Indeed, she is a true dragon hatchling, her physical body is truly terrifying. The little girl directly put one half of the divine token into her mouth, chewed it a few times, and swallowed it. As for the other half of the divine token, it melted into a pool of spiritual liquid in her palm. The spiritual liquid flew out and merged into Zhongzhan's body. Buzz. The thunder patterns covering his body manifested on their own, clearly gaining a touch of ancient golden brilliance. Zhongzhan was stunned, not understanding what the little girl was doing. But the little girl directly pulled Zhongzhan and said with a smile, "Daddy, it's done. We are now the key and can go in directly." Swallowing the divine token and turning into a key, does that really work? Zhongzhan was skeptical about this. However, now there seemed to be no other way. Since he had lost the key, he could only give it a try. So, Zhongzhan supported the little girl and walked through the air, heading towards the pillar. The geniuses naturally noticed Zhongzhan's actions, but they didn't pay much attention, thinking he was just an impatient kid. After all, the true divine realm would not open for another 3 days, so whatever they did now would be in vain. But the next moment, everyone's jaws dropped in shock. Zhongzhan supported the little girl and walked towards the pillar. When they reached the pillar, there was no obstruction at all. It was as if they had passed through a layer of light curtain and entered directly. They disappeared. Quote, question mark, question mark, question mark, quote. For a moment, all the geniuses stood up in disbelief, their faces showing an expression of incredulity. The true divine realm was supposed to open in 3 days, so how did he get in? Many geniuses flew out directly, approaching the pillar, wanting to enter in the same way. Buzz. The intricate patterns on the pillar immediately flickered with a dim light, forming a mysterious barrier that blocked everyone. And those who didn't believe it, used their divine abilities to attack the pillar. Boom. The light surged, bursting out a terrifying primordial aura. The divine abilities were instantly disintegrated and turned into nothingness. PFF'd. Summoning the divine abilities prodigy, he suffered a backlash, spewing blood uncontrollably, and his aura instantly weakened. Everyone's face changed drastically. What exactly happened? But the anomaly had just begun. As Zhongzhan entered the realm of the true god, the towering pillar that seemed to have no top or bottom was collapsing at a visible speed. A heavy and primitive aura, like a divine mountain, crashed down, and the entire gray space shattered and collapsed like a mirror, turning into nothingness. Not only that, boom, the entire space shattered, and even the celestial caves began to collapse rapidly. The dim divine light shot in all directions, clearing the entire sky, and the profound rules spread out like an ocean, suppressing everything. Ancient visions appeared one after another. The desolate battlefield of Kanji, the Cold War chariots galloping, the blood-stained weapons intertwining, the violent chaos. The scene of a chaotic world emerged clearly in the sky, with a terrifying aura of slaughter that made people tremble. And after this vision, the indescribably majestic pillar was exposed between the heavens and the earth of southern Shenzhou, still standing tall as if supporting the entire world. Still collapsing at a visible speed. The collapsing pillar tore through the boundless sky, leaving behind unhealable cracks, and the pitch-black void flowed silently, as if harboring a terrifying horror. This is the realm of the true God. On southern Shenzhou, all beings looked up, unaware of the situation, staring at the sky in astonishment. The location of the anomaly seemed to be within the territory of the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect. Could it be that the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect has opened a secret place? For a while, various factions that were unaware of the situation gathered their prodigies and geniuses and hurried over. They couldn't just let the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect monopolize a secret place, they had to force them to open it and get a share of the benefits. On a desolate hill, Zhang Hong stood on a war chariot, holding a quota token in his hand, looking at the celestial caves that had already been reduced to ruins 100 miles away, his expression changing. The early opening of the realm of the true God, and the momentum far exceeding expectations, undoubtedly disrupted his plans and would inevitably lead to many unexpected situations. After all, the current vision was too astonishing and would definitely attract more prodigies to enter. In the Great Luo Holy Land, the Great Luo Holy Lord and others were shocked, their faces filled with disbelief. Wasn't it said that the realm of the true God would only open in 3 days? How could it suddenly open in advance? Desolate Heaven Divine Sect, what are they up to? The sudden early opening of the realm of the true God by the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect is obviously because they already know about our plans and are trying to disrupt our formation, said the Great Luo Holy Lord, his expression cold as he calmly analyzed. The elders of both sides had a slight change in their expressions and felt somewhat difficult for a while. The early opening of the realm of the true God had disrupted all their deployments. No need to worry, everything will be as usual. The Great Luo Holy Lord smiled coldly, in the face of absolute strength, all struggles are futile. There's no time to waste, I'll send you there. Immediately, the Great Luo Holy Lord waved his hand and directly lifted everyone up, tearing through the sky at a crack speed. In Tianlin Ancient City, Zhanzi Henge, with his hands behind his back, stood on a building, surrounded by sword energy, and his pure yang aura rolled like magma. With a pair of sharp and restrained eyes, he looked at the anomaly of the collapsing pillar in the sky and asked lightly, "Where is that? Whose territory is it?" Reply, Zhanzi, "It should be within the territory of the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect." Ripples appeared in the void behind Henge, followed by an ancient voice. Desolate Heaven Divine Sect. Zhanzi nodded slightly, pondered for a moment, and said softly, "Let's go and take a look." Zhang Chenkin is so good at hiding. The Tianlin Ancient City is so big, it's not a solution to search for him everywhere. Moreover, as a prodigy of a certain faction, I believe he won't miss this secret place. If I can encounter Zhang Chenkin there, seize the Jixia Academy, and then enter this secret place to seize the opportunities within, it would be the best. Zhanzi's mouth curled up slightly. Immediately, Zhanzi set off from the Tianlin Ancient City and headed towards the direction of the realm of the true God. Meanwhile, in a divine peak thousands of miles away from the Tianlin Ancient City, Zhao Fuyao, the divine maiden of the Zhao family, looked up at the anomaly with narrowed eyes. A brilliant starlight flashed by, and a cold smile appeared on her lips. I didn't expect to encounter the opening of a secret place before finding Zhang Chenkin on this journey. Well, let's go and take a look. What kind of secrets are hidden inside this place that can cause such a shocking phenomenon? Let's go, Zhao Fuyao ordered coldly. Immediately, the strong members of the Zhao family commanded the immortal boat, breaking through the sky and turning into a stream of light, rushing away. Just like Henge and Zhao Fuyao, the geniuses who came from the Eastern Divine Continent, they were unable to find Zhang Chenkin after searching tirelessly. When they saw the anomaly appearing in the sky, they were all pleasantly surprised. They never expected that such a secret place would open in the Southern Divine Continent, and they happened to catch up with it. Immediately, they all hurriedly headed towards it. There's no way. Zhang Chenkin is too good at hiding, and there's no trace of him at all. Instead of continuing to search in vain, it's better to go and see this secret place. If they can enter and obtain opportunities inside, it would not be in vain for them to come to the Southern Divine Continent. Desolate Heaven Divine Sect. Boom. An ancient and vast aura spread out. The Desolate Heaven Divine Lord hurriedly walked out with an eager expression. He first went to Luo Xinglan's dojo and took her away, then strode through the void, heading towards the true God's secret realm. Luo Xinglan frowned and asked with some confusion, why did the true God's secret realm open ahead of time? I don't know. The desolate heaven divine lord's expression became serious, and his tone was deep. Things have far exceeded expectations. The shocking phenomenon will surely attract the various sects of the southern divine continent to come and join forces to demand entry into the true God's secret realm. This will probably have a great impact on your plans. Luo Xinglan shook her head slightly, her beautiful eyes lowered, and she calmly said, if that's all, it's not a big deal. What I'm worried about is, someone has already entered the true God's secret realm ahead of time. The desolate heaven divine lord suddenly stopped in midair, looked at Luo Xinglan in disbelief, pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said in a firm voice, it's impossible. The true God's secret realm was personally discovered and guided by me. The passage was even forged by my own hands. Only a true God can open and enter the true God's secret realm without my knowledge. The great era has not yet arrived, and even the virtual gods are still asleep in this era. True gods. Perhaps there are a few ancient true gods who have survived, but they are all decayed and near death. It's absolutely impossible for them to sacrifice their lives for the true God's secret realm. No force would be so foolish. Luo Xinglan nodded in agreement with the divine lord's words. No force would be foolish enough to waste a true god like that. However, she couldn't help but feel that something was amiss in her heart. After all, the fact was right in front of her. The true God's secret realm did open 3 days ahead of schedule. With this thought, the figure of that person involuntarily appeared in Luo Xinglan's mind. If it's him, it would make sense. Luo Xinglan murmured to herself. Outside the ruins of the TND Melt Cave. When the desolate heaven divine lord and Luo Xinglan arrived, thousands of figures had already gathered here. The powerhouses and geniuses from various sects stood tall in the sky, and the terrifying aura piled up and rolled like the great trend of heaven and earth, pressing down. Maipo and the geniuses of the desolate heaven divine sect were struggling to resist, showing signs of being overwhelmed. Outrageous. The desolate heaven divine lord's face darkened, and he shouted angrily. The terrifying desolate aura condensed into substance, forming a wasteland, dispersing the auras of various forces. Desolate heaven divine lord, although your desolate heaven divine sect is powerful, it's unrealistic to monopolize this secret place. That's right. Open the secret place and allow us geniuses to enter, otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The leaders of various forces responded one after another. Desolate heaven, the heavenly lord, glanced around and had a cold expression, not expressing any opinion. Instead, he looked at the great Luo Holy Lord and asked lightly, Great Luo Holy Lord, in your opinion, what should we do? The great Luo Holy Lord chuckled, naturally understanding the meaning behind desolate heaven's words. The true divine realm is controlled by the desolate heaven divine sect, the great Luo Holy Land, the extreme Tao sect, and the ancient dark holy religion. With these 4 forces in control, it is indeed difficult for the desolate heaven divine sect alone to resist the pressure from all sides. However, if they join forces, it will naturally be much easier. But why should he help? The more chaotic the true divine realm becomes, the more advantageous it is for him. After all, he still has a trump card. The great Luo Holy Lord glanced at desolate heaven and said indifferently, what difference does it make if the geniuses from all sides enter the secret realm? The treasures and opportunities are up to their own abilities. The desolate heaven divine sect, as the #1 overlord in the southern divine continent, shouldn't lack confidence in their own geniuses, right? Upon hearing this, desolate heaven's expression immediately darkened, and a cold light flickered in his eyes. At this moment, Luo Xinglan also learned about the situation in the gray space at that time. Her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a hint of anger. She could be certain that the person who entered the true divine realm first and triggered the early opening of the true divine realm was definitely Zhang Zan, the young patriarch of the Zhang family. She sincerely invited him, but he coldly refused. And now, he secretly sneaked in. Am I really that unwelcome to you? Luo Xinglan gritted her teeth, full of resentment. After taking a few deep breaths and doing some mental preparation, Luo Xinglan raised her eyes slightly and looked at the numerous geniuses present. There were thousands of them, many of whom possessed formidable strength, including dozens of profound Earth realm experts. If she allowed all these geniuses to enter, it would indeed disrupt her original plans. However, Luo Xinglan's beautiful eyes narrowed, revealing a cold intent. Even if there were many people, she was confident that she could handle them all. Immediately, Luo Xinglan transmitted her voice to Desolate Heaven, distribute the quota talismans and let them in. Desolate Heaven was taken aback and replied in a deep voice. Are you confident? No problem. Luo Xinglan nodded slightly. Rather than blocking them, it's better to let them in. They are just a bunch of clowns who can't stir up any waves. While the situation outside was in turmoil, inside the true divine realm, there was a different scene. Zhang Zan led the little girl and entered the heavenly pillar unimpeded. What came into view was an endless gray-white color, just like the gray space they were in earlier. But the difference was that the heavenly pillar, which supported the heavens and earth, was now lying in the center of the space. It formed an ancient and heavy boundless ancient road, overgrown with weeds and withered trees. Looking along the ancient road, one couldn't see the end, only a dim gray-white color, revealing a somewhat desolate atmosphere. Zhang Zan and the little girl landed on the ancient road. A heavy and desolate aura rushed towards them, as if they were in a primitive wilderness. Some information immediately surged in their minds. It turned out, they had already entered the true divine realm. Because the gray space they were in just now was actually a part of the true divine realm. Or rather, it was the opposite side of the true divine realm. This peculiar world is like a mirror, simultaneously existing in both the front and back spaces, and the heavenly pillar is the bridge connecting the front and back. However, this world has already shattered, and the back side has been extinguished, forming the gray space they saw earlier. The front side is the true divine realm they are about to enter. Interesting, Zhang Zan murmured in surprise. But when he noticed the little girl's behavior, Zhang Zan's face immediately turned dark. The little girl was pulling out weeds one after another and stuffing them into her mouth. Zhang Zan couldn't help but kick the little girl. Are you that hungry? The little girl winced in pain, turned her head to look at Zhang Zan, her eyes blank, and continued chewing on the grass. After swallowing the grass in her mouth, the little girl picked up another handful of grass and handed it to Zhang Zan with a smile. Daddy, this is good stuff. Zhang Zan was taken aback. How could a handful of grass be considered good stuff? Subconsciously, he took the grass and sensed it. Zhang Zan's eyes widened in astonishment. How is this possible? Zhang Zan murmured incredulously. Clearly, it was just a handful of ordinary grass that was used to feed cattle in the mortal world, but it contained an extremely majestic and pure spiritual energy. It was no weaker than external spiritual medicines. Weeds have turned into spiritual medicines. Zhang Zan said in disbelief, gaining a clear and profound understanding of the blessings of this true God's mysterious realm. After all, even in a top-notch holy land, there was no such fortune to turn weeds into spiritual medicines. Immediately, Zhang Zan, with the little girl, continued forward along the ancient path, plucking every blade of grass they came across and stuffing them all into the little girl's stomach. Although the spiritual energy contained in these weeds was of low quality, the quantity was overwhelming. They were everywhere on the ancient path. The little girl enjoyed eating them, swiftly advancing like a gust of wind. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, in front of the two of them, besides the lush grass, other vegetation finally appeared. A withered tree with flickering thunder on it, vaguely seemed to be adorned with a few thunder patterns. Thunderstrike wood. Zhang Zan was momentarily stunned, sensing it for a moment, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. In the outside world, Thunderstrike wood is not considered a precious spiritual medicine, but here it has transformed into a great medicine. Its medicinal effects are probably increased by more than 10 times, right? Daddy, don't you have a Thunder Dao physique? The Thunderstrike wood that has transformed into a great medicine will be beneficial to you. The little girl finished eating all the grass in that area, looked at the Thunderstrike wood, didn't use her mouth, but reached out her small hand and hugged the Thunderstrike wood, pulling it out. Buzz. The moment the Thunderstrike wood was pulled out, the ancient path suddenly trembled, and swirling vortexes appeared in the gray-white sky, forming an ancient and desolate pressure, like a divine mountain, pressing down. Different from the grass, the Thunderstrike wood being taken away seemed to touch some kind of rule in the true God's mysterious realm. The little girl widened her eyes and scolded unhappily, "What are you growling at?" With the scolding from the little girl, the true dragon bloodline within her also roared and roared, emitting golden amber bloodlight that shimmered in the sky, dyeing the entire gray and desolate world red. The sacred, unruly, and supreme true dragon's might shattered the pressure of the true god's mysterious realm in an instant. Boom! The trembling of the ancient path became even more intense. Even the entire gray and desolate world shook. And this scene manifested in the outside world as a different spectacle. The pillar in the sky shook violently, and the savage and heavy aura of the wilderness surged in all directions, shattering all the various anomalies and causing ripples in the void. Upon seeing this, the great Luo Saint Lord narrowed his eyes and immediately had a bad premonition. He sneered, "Desolate heaven, divine lord, what a great move. You're blocking us here, delaying time, and then letting your divine sect's geniuses enter early to collect all the good things in the true god's mysterious realm, right?" Upon hearing this, the leaders of various Fosses' expressions changed, and they became anxious. "Desolate heaven, divine lord, if you don't open the secret realm soon, don't blame us for breaking in directly." The lord of a holy land burst forth with divine radiance, the rules of the great Tao enveloping him, exuding a menacing aura that shook the sky. The leaders of various forces followed suit, releasing powerful auras, pressuring the desolate heaven divine lord to retreat and open the true god's mysterious realm. The desolate heaven divine lord's expression remained unchanged. He glanced at Luo Xinglan and asked through voice transmission, "Is everything ready?" Luo Xinglan nodded slightly, "All the quota spirit talismans have been made. They can enter now." But Luo Xinglan's eyes drooped slightly, and after pondering for a moment, she slowly said, "Let's delay a bit longer. If we retreat now, it will only make these forces look down on our desolate heaven divine sect." If her guess is correct, the one who caused the anomaly in the true god's mystery realm should be Zhang Zan. She doesn't mind giving the other party a little more time. Her plan was never about the opportunities in the true god's mystery realm. Instead of giving them to others, it's better to give them all to Zhang Zan. The Lord of Desolate Heaven nodded thoughtfully and then looked at the various forces, saying lightly, "I can make a concession and provide each force with 20 quota talismans, which means 20 spots for entry. And the production of the quota talismans will take some time, so we need to wait for another half an hour." After weighing their options, the various forces accepted the arrangement of the Lord of Desolate Heaven. They naturally understood that the half an hour mentioned by the Lord of Desolate Heaven was simply a delay tactic, giving the prodigies of the Desolate Heaven divine sect more opportunities to gain advantages. But so what? Having the opportunity in hand doesn't mean they can bring it out alive. They have full confidence in their own prodigies and geniuses, confident enough to surpass the others and seize their opportunities, collecting all the chances and treasures in the true god's mystery realm. Even if they only have 20 spots, it's enough. In the face of absolute strength, quantity is completely irrelevant. And when the various forces reached a consensus, on the boundless ancient road, Zhang Zan and the little girl were busy collecting everything in their path, leaving no trace behind. They collected at a rapid pace, moving forward at high speed. After 2 incense sticks worth of time, the end of the ancient road finally came into view. At this moment, Zhang Zan couldn't stop smiling. In his storage ring, there were already 5,000 medicinal plants of the highest grade, and 500 king-grade medicinal plants. Even, there were 10 Dao-grade medicinal plants. And this was only the harvest after the little girl had consumed most of it. It's worth noting that most Fosses prodigies would probably only have 1 top-grade medicinal plant for a month of cultivation resources. This shows how precious top-grade medicinal plants are. Not to mention king-grade and Dao-grade medicinal plants. Zhang Zan still remembered that in the last trial in their ancestral land, he had to work to death and earn over 1,000,000 points just to obtain 1 Dao-grade medicinal plant. And today, with just a little effort, he had already obtained 10 Dao-grade medicinal plants. We haven't even entered the true god's mystery realm yet, and we've already gained so much. How many good things must there be inside the true god's mystery realm? Zhang Zan looked at the end of the ancient road, where it was bright as day, the entrance to the true god's mystery realm. He was now filled with anticipation for the true god's mystery realm. The little girl felt the same way. She had swept through everything along the way, except for the top-grade medicinal plants, king-grade medicinal plants, and Dao-grade medicinal plants that matched her father's physique. Everything else had been stuffed into her stomach. It's the same old saying, Although the quality of energy products is far inferior to the energy of the Great Tao, the quantity is simply too much. As a result, the little girl's entire body had become plump, and the overflowing spiritual energy couldn't be contained. She had eaten too much. Even with her dragon physique and bloodline, she couldn't keep up with the assimilation. But she never felt full. The little girl stared at the entrance of the true God's mystery realm, her chubby face filled with longing. She sensed the rich energy, so much of it. She even sensed several energy products with extremely high quality, far surpassing the energy of the Great Tao. "Daddy, hurry up, I want to eat." Zhongzhan nodded slightly, supporting the girl as they stepped into the bright curtain of light, as if it were daytime. An indescribable sense of inversion surged through their bodies, from flesh to soul, giving them a feeling of being forcibly torn apart and inverted. They had no way to adapt, yet they had to adapt, feeling inexplicably uncomfortable. It was as if their entire being had undergone complete dehydration, only to be forcibly infused and filled again. All their senses were strongly stimulated, making it impossible to stop. Fortunately, this process was short-lived. In the blink of an eye, the two had arrived in a new world. The front of this world was truly mysterious. The dense and condensed aura of desolation, as if it had already solidified into water, rushed towards them, giving them a primitive feeling of devouring blood and flesh. Looking into the distance, all they could see was a vast expanse of gray, endless desolate mountains, hills, and soil, as well as scattered decaying white bones. It was just like the gray space. Apart from the vast and solid ground, there didn't seem to be much difference. Of course, if you didn't count the sky above their heads. Zhongzhan gazed at the sky, his eyelids twitching, unable to hide his shock. The entire sky was as dark as the starry sky, deep and mysterious. Streams of starlight formed vortexes, flowing with profound and captivating trajectories. And in this deep sky, there lay a corpse. Indescribably massive. The towering desolate mountains in front of him seemed as small as a strand of hair. The endless wasteland seemed like a small patch of necrotic skin in front of him. The immediate impression this shocking scene gave was that this sky was just a shroud for this corpse. This world was just a coffin for this corpse. I'm afraid it's far from being as simple as a true mysterious realm, Zhongzhan murmured softly. In the current celestial wonders realm, a peak true God would be enough to dominate all living beings, even to unify the profound heaven. But even the most powerful true God had limitations. The remains of a true God, let alone a corpse like the one in front of him, which had been buried by the heavens and earth after death, would find it extremely difficult to resist the erosion of the heavens and earth. There was a chasm-like gap between the two. This is a God. A true God. At this moment, the voice of the old master sounded in Zhongzhan's mind, filled with clear tremors and astonishment. A God. Zhongzhan's heart stirred, a look of confusion spreading across his face as he silently asked himself, what is the difference between a God and the virtual gods and true gods we know? The difference is huge. They can't even be compared. The old master scolded impatiently, then explained, virtual gods and true gods are just a level of existence. They are named after their divine souls, which can freely separate from their physical bodies, wander through the heavens and earth, and harness the power of the heavens and earth. They are called virtual gods. Furthermore, their divine souls can merge with the Great Tao, commanding the power of the Great Tao between heaven and earth, making them true gods. But a God is conferred by the heavens and earth, enjoying the luck of a world, and wielding the authority of the Great Tao. It can be said that as long as the world does not perish, the God will live forever. A God, immortal. Zhongzhan was taken aback, subconsciously looking at the corpse and saying strangely, you call this immortality? The old master's tone faltered, sighing lightly before saying, indeed, it has fallen into silence. But it has not died. When this world revives, the Great Tao reappears, and authority is bestowed upon it, it will awaken. Just like the ancient powerhouses, walking against the cycle of reincarnation to live a second life. However, the chances of ancient powerhouses living a second life by walking against the cycle of reincarnation are extremely slim, but when it awakens, it's just a matter of time. Zhongzhan's mind trembled, his expression immediately becoming serious as he looked at the god's corpse, showing a sense of respect. I was just joking earlier, please don't take it seriously. He didn't want this person to wake up and recall his memories from before, noticing him being watched by a god. Zhang Zan shivered subconsciously. He had already experienced enough disasters and hardships. If another god were to come, he really wouldn't be able to handle it. Daddy, I feel so sad. The little girl tugged at Zhang Zan, her face filled with bitterness and grievance. Zhang Zan glanced at the little girl and was immediately surprised. She had just gained some weight and was full of vitality, but now she had completely assimilated it all and returned to her doll-like appearance. This speed, truly worthy of a true dragon hatchling. Why are you sad? Zhang Zan patted the little girl's head. If it weren't for her dragon power earlier, he wouldn't have been able to face the rule pressure of the true god's realm so easily with his own strength. If Zhang Chenkin was his lucky star, then the little girl in front of him was his VIP pass. With her around, many rule restrictions were no longer restrictions. The little girl raised her chubby little hand and pointed at the corpse of the god in the sky, her voice filled with a hint of crying. That thing looks really delicious, but I can't eat it. Zhang Zan's face immediately darkened, and he silently withdrew his hand that was patting the little girl's head. Child, if you eat everything, it will only harm you. Upon hearing the little girl's words, Confucius was also shocked. He couldn't see through this little girl, and even ignored her existence for a while, but he was very clear that she definitely had something extraordinary about her. Either she possessed an extraordinary physique, or she was the descendant of a powerful being. The series of actions the little girl displayed on the ancient road was enough to prove this. According to his speculation, the little girl's gluttony and ability to eat so much should be due to her own physique or bloodline, requiring a massive amount of energy. But he never expected that she would even dare to think about gods. Confucius immediately retreated to the Haoran platform without making a sound. Speaking such offensive words to a god, he couldn't guarantee that the god wouldn't notice after waking up. It was better for him to stay out of it and protect himself. Although he was already dead, he still wanted to live a few more years. Let's go. Zhang Zan patted the little girl's head and said impatiently, do what you can handle, understand? But that's a god. The little girl hesitated. Zhang Zan thought for a moment and secretly transmitted his voice, if you want to eat it, wait until you grow up. The little girl nodded earnestly. I understand, Daddy. Immediately, the two of them were about to walk towards the barren mountain in front of them. The will of humanity resonated within him. There might be a human treasure that he needed in the barren mountain. And just at this moment, roar, accompanied by a fierce roar, several fierce auras rushed towards them. 5 wolves that appeared out of nowhere suddenly leapt out, wielding sharp claws like blades, pouncing towards Zhang Zan and the little girl. Terrifying demonic energy emanated from their bodies, accompanied by astonishing energy fluctuations. All of them are at the peak of the spirit transformation stage. Zhang Zan frowned, somewhat surprised. 5 spirit transformation stage beasts posed no threat to him. After all, with his foundation, his combat power had long been comparable to a profound earth expert. What surprised him was, these 5 wolves were just ordinary beasts, without any special bloodline, let alone a powerful bloodline inheritance. In the outside world, these ordinary wolves wouldn't even be considered demonic beasts, just common wild animals. The true god's realm is truly full of treasures. Zhang Zan couldn't help but exclaim. On the ancient road, weeds contained spiritual energy comparable to spiritual medicine, and ordinary spiritual medicine could transform into great medicine. And here, even ordinary beasts could grow to the peak of the spirit transformation stage with the help of spiritual energy. Of course, the growth of demonic beasts was absolutely restricted. Without a powerful bloodline, these 5 wolves had reached the peak of the spirit transformation stage, clearly reaching their limit. Unless they had a great opportunity, it would be impossible for them to break through to the profound earth stage. This thought only lasted for an instant. Although Zhang Zan was amazed, he had already grasped the red heart sword in his hand, and the sharp sword intent was surging, ready to solve these 5 wolves that had mistaken their prey with a single strike. But the little girl was faster than him. Or rather, the little girl's actions were simpler and more direct. Come on in, sweetheart. The little girl's eyes lit up as she reached into her storage ring and pulled out a large iron pot. She set up the pot. Then, the fire started. The little girl activated her bloodline slightly, and a domineering dragon's aura flashed, suppressing the 5 wolves. Thump! The 5 wolves' legs went weak, and they cowered on the ground, trembling. Their originally cold eyes were filled with deep fear and unease. These wolves were all grown wild beasts with low intelligence. Sensing the dragon's aura, the bloodline pressure that completely surpassed them, the fear hidden deep in their souls instantly erupted. They didn't dare to resist at all. They let out a mournful howl. Very obediently, they crawled into the pot, and cooked themselves. It's hairy, not tasty. The little girl muttered disdainfully, summoning a flame and burning off all the wolves' fur. Then, she happily added water and cooked them over a high flame. Then, in Zhongzhan's astonished gaze, the little girl skillfully took out salt, scallions, chili, a series of seasonings, and threw them into the pot. That's not. Zhongzhan's mind went blank, and he patted the little girl. The little girl turned her head, her eyes filled with confusion. What's wrong, Daddy? Where did you get all these things? Zhongzhan pointed at the seasonings in the little girl's hand. The little girl recalled, but her actions were methodical. When we were in the royal city, Daddy, you went to the Jixia Academy, and I had nothing to do, so I asked that steward Zhang to take me to buy these things. Steward Zhang said that eating is a big deal in life and should not be taken lightly. So, I bought a little more. We'll always need them for cooking in the future. However, Zhongzhan might not know that when the little girl said she bought a little more, she actually emptied 10 shops. Although these were just seasonings, they were meant for cultivators and were all spiritual herbs. For this, Steward Zhang spent his entire year's salary. Out of fear of Zhongzhan, who was disguised as Zhang Chenkin, Steward Zhang didn't dare to mention a word about this matter and could only swallow his grievances. Zhongzhan was instantly amazed. Soon, the delicious food was cooked, and the enticing aroma filled the air. Zhongzhan's nose twitched, and his appetite soared. Daddy, let's eat together. The little girl took out bowls, chopsticks, knives, and forks and handed them to Zhongzhan. Zhongzhan looked at the little girl's skilled process, fell silent for a moment, and then accepted it calmly. He took the utensils and began to eat heartily. In fact, at his level, he could already cultivate without eating, absorb spiritual energy, and find it more beneficial than eating grains and miscellaneous grains. It wouldn't pollute his physical body either. But, who could resist the temptation of delicious food? While Zhongzhan and the little girl were enjoying their meal, the geniuses outside finally began to set off for the true god's mysterious realm. There were about 3,000 geniuses and monsters from all sides, each holding a quota spiritual talisman, flying towards the pillar that stood in the sky. Buzz. Mysterious patterns rippled with a heavy brilliance. Just like Zhongzhan before, everyone entered the interior of the pillar, which was the ancient road, without any hindrance. Standing on the ancient road, after receiving the information from this world, everyone didn't hesitate and sped forward. But after walking for a while, they realized something was wrong. The rule pressure here. Was a bit too terrifying, right? Everyone's speed visibly slowed down. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on them, making every step difficult. Moreover, the higher their cultivation, the heavier the pressure they felt. Among the crowd, Zhang Hong closed his eyes, inconspicuous but full of doubts. He had a deep understanding of the true god's mysterious realm. The rule pressure on the ancient road only appeared when the original form of the ancient road was destroyed. But, why did such a powerful pressure erupt as soon as they entered? Subconsciously, they explored both sides of the ancient road. Zhang Hong immediately wanted to curse. No, who is it? Not even letting go of the weeds. Although they were just weeds, they were still a part of the ancient road. And now, all the weeds along the road had been completely cleared. It would be strange if the pressure of the rules didn't appear. A group of arrogant individuals resisted the pressure and slowly moved forward. The pressure of the rules became stronger and caused a large number of the arrogant individuals who were still in the state of enlightenment to have to stop in frustration. They couldn't continue anymore. If they continued, they would probably be crushed into minced meat by the pressure of the rules before entering the true mysterious realm. They made a rational choice between opportunity and life. After about a fragrant time, the arrogant individuals arrived at the place where Zhongzhan had previously uprooted the thunder-striking wood. There was a not too big hole, and the strong thunderous aura of the thunder striking wood still lingered in it. The arrogant individuals fell silent. The answer was already obvious. Someone had walked ahead of them and collected everything on the ancient road, leaving nothing for them. It wouldn't matter if they didn't leave anything for them. The key point was, it stimulated the pressure of the rules and made them bear the consequences. Deep resentment rose in everyone's hearts. Many arrogant individuals and geniuses even cast questioning glances at Luo Xinglan. Was it necessary, delaying for half an hour, allowing the arrogant individuals of your desolate heaven divine sect to collect the benefits first, and now, you're suffering too, right? They had only walked 1% of this boundless ancient road. The pressure had already become so terrifying. I really don't know, when they reach the end, how much more will the pressure increase? It would be interesting if in the end, even you couldn't enter. Luo Xinglan remained expressionless and unconcerned. She was just a little puzzled. With that person's terrifying talent and arrogant personality, how could he be interested in these trivial weeds? The journey continued. Out of the original 3,000 arrogant individuals and geniuses, there were now less than 1,000 left. The arrogant individuals who were in the state of enlightenment had all been eliminated by the terrifying pressure of the rules. After all, those who were still in the state of enlightenment had relatively shallow foundations. Except for Zhang Hong. He was very familiar with the true mysterious realm and had secret techniques to manipulate it. For example, the current overwhelming pressure of the rules that covered the sky and earth only had a 30% effect on him. So, even though he was only in the state of enlightenment, he was still at ease. However, his mood was not good. Among the remaining arrogant individuals, he was the only one in the state of enlightenment, standing out like a crane among chickens. This undoubtedly posed a great obstacle to his future quest for the divine object in that direction. Zhang Hong cursed inwardly, full of resentment towards the person who had entered before them. The current situation was roughly this: the various factions were independent and exclusive, eyeing each other with hostility. Meanwhile, the arrogant individuals and geniuses from the Eastern Divine Continent, such as Zhang Hong, Zhao Fuyao, and Henge, gathered together and supported each other. Of course, although they were in a state of mutual support, they were secretly observing and investigating each other. However, the more they investigated, the more confused they became. With such a world-shaking secret place opening up, did Zhang Chengqin really resist the temptation and not come? Being so afraid of death, isn't that acting recklessly as an arrogant individual? Moreover, for the random inheritance of the Jixia Academy, you dared to kill thousands of people and become enemies with various factions. But now, because of your own survival, you don't even dare to show your face. This doesn't match your Zhang Chengqin's character. Various geniuses from all sides, each with their own thoughts, continued to move forward. Another half an hour passed. Finally, they arrived at the end of the ancient road, with a bright entrance like daylight right in front of them. At this moment, all the geniuses were restless, their brilliance flickering. Some even, their bodies were already cracked, blood dripping. There was no way, the pressure was just too terrifying. The vast majority of geniuses had to use all their abilities just to barely withstand the pressure and make it this far. Luo Xinglan glanced at everyone, her eyes slightly lowered, feeling helpless. Over 3,000 people came, but now there were less than 700. Even her desolate heaven divine sect had eliminated nearly half of its geniuses. She knew better than anyone who was behind all this. But she couldn't say it, and she wouldn't. However, a faint smile appeared on Luo Xinglan's lips. She could use the hatred that the other person had stirred up to eliminate some of the people in front of her. I believe you all have seen it. Someone is ahead of us, collecting spiritual herbs along the ancient road. Among them, there are even Tao medicines. As soon as these words were spoken, anger flared up in everyone's eyes. That person who killed thousands. They collected all the good things for themselves and made them endure the terrifying pressure. They deserved to die. The pressure from the true God's realm is in real time. That person has to withstand the pressure while collecting spiritual herbs, so their speed is definitely slower than ours. Therefore, the time they have spent in the true God's realm shouldn't be too long. Luo Xinglan calmly said, so, if we enter now, there is a high probability that we can catch up to that person, kill them, and take their gains for ourselves. Upon hearing this, Everyone's eyes flickered, and their hearts became hot. If they could seize that person's gains, even if they didn't have any other opportunities on this trip, it would still be worth it. Immediately, without much hesitation, the geniuses stepped through the light curtain and entered the true god's realm, even disregarding their own injuries. There were some who doubted the truthfulness of Luo Xinglan's words. But they didn't pay too much attention to it. Those who could make it this far were geniuses with deep foundations and strong combat power, even monstrous talents. They had absolute confidence in themselves. Even if Luo Xinglan had ulterior motives, it was not worth worrying about. In the face of absolute strength, everything else was in vain. One genius after another entered. The smile on Luo Xinglan's lips became more apparent. The quota talismans were made by her. How could there be no countermeasures? She was confident that after more than 700 geniuses entered, at least half of them would lose their lives. Zhang Hong passed by Luo Xinglan, discreetly glancing at her, feeling somewhat cautious. He held the quota talisman in his hand, secretly manipulating some of the rules in this place, and then entered with peace of mind. When Zhao Fuyao, Henge, and the others all entered, only Luo Xinglan remained. Luo Xinglan narrowed her eyes, a coldness spreading, and then crushed the quota talisman in her hand. Buzz! A special aura surged out and merged into the rules of the true god's realm. The so-called quota talisman was just a cover. Without it, they could still enter the true god's realm and randomly land somewhere. But, with the quota talisman, the originally random landing spot would become a predetermined one. Yes, she specifically chose the location for these people. Just imagine, if a genius were to land directly in the territory of a group of profound Earth experts, what would be their fate? For the younger generation, the true god's realm was extremely dangerous. Did they really think they were standing at the pinnacle of the younger generation? However, this situation was originally intended for a few sects in the southern Divine Land, but unexpectedly, it attracted so many geniuses from different sects. Soon, Luo Xinglan also stepped into it. These days, under the influence of the quota spiritual talisman, the days of arrogance did not quickly enter the realm of true gods, but were in a state where their physical bodies and souls were reversed, bound for a long time. After all, fixed-point teleportation takes time. On the other hand, Zhang Zan and the little girl had a meal and then set off for the desolate mountains. They traveled for about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Entering the desolate mountains, the wild atmosphere became even stronger. There was even a faint sense of ancientness, as if they were in an ancient place of the human race. "Daddy, there's something delicious ahead." The little girl's eyes lit up again, then she ran off, leaving behind a trail of afterimages. Her speed, even Zhang Zan was amazed. The little girl's speed was once comparable to profound Earth. Is her current strength stronger than mine? Zhang Zan couldn't help but be amazed, then quickly followed. Passing through two ruins, a smooth gorge suddenly appeared before them. The gorge was not large, spanning several miles, with 2 rows of stone houses scattered inside, as if someone lived there. What was worth noting was that at the entrance of the gorge, there stood a stone stele that was 10 zhang tall. The stele had a green-brown surface, smooth as a mirror, rippling with a faint light, with an ancient and heavy aura, giving a sense of an ancient sacred object. The little girl stared at the stone stele intently, her eyes shining brightly. Without saying a word, she pounced directly at the stele and took a bite. Crack! A crisp sound of metal and stone rang out, followed by the little girl's cry of pain. Ouch! The little girl frowned, jumped down from the stele, and looked at Zhang Zan, complaining, "Daddy, it's so hard. Can't you break it? If you break it, I can eat it." Zhang Zan twitched his mouth, ignoring her, and approached the stele, carefully examining it. Perhaps because he was getting closer, the stele trembled slightly, and like a mirror, complex and profound patterns appeared on its surface, ancient and sacred, with a vague sense of intimacy. Zhang Zan's human will also surged, as if resonating with the stele. And his human luck also faintly surged out and merged into the stele, blending with each other. This thing seemed to be the treasure of the human race. Zhang Zan pondered for a moment, suddenly feeling a sense of unreality. The whole process seemed a bit too easy. He was prepared to fight desperately for the treasure of the human race, but he didn't expect to find it so soon after entering. "Am I going to have a change of luck?" Zhang Zan murmured in surprise. At this moment, the old man walked out on his own, forming a phantom, staring blankly at the steel, his old face filled with shock and disbelief. A human steel. Impossible, impossible, how could there be a human steel here? What is this place? The old man exclaimed in shock, his expression out of control, as if he had lost his soul. Zhang Zan looked at the old man in surprise. Hey, old man, what's wrong with you? You said this is a human steel, what's wrong with a human steel? The old man ignored him, still in a daze. Hey, old man, answer me. The little girl stared her eyes and jumped up, launching a powerful attack, not showing any mercy with the power of her dragon bloodline. The phantom of the old man shook for a moment, almost dissipating directly. This time he woke up, but he had lost half of his life. The old man looked at the little girl, blowing his beard and staring. Do you know how to respect your elders? Yes, respect your elders. I'm young, you have to let me have my way. The little girl was righteous. The old man's tone stagnated, completely blocked. After digesting the impact of the human steel, the old man looked at the steel, his eyes still filled with complexity and shock, his tone deep and profound. He said, the human steel is made up of 3,000 rare stones from heaven and earth gathered by the human emperor, carrying the human luck and the general trend, and as the symbol of the human race's destiny. A sage of the human race once said that if the human steel shatters, the human race will perish. The monument is broken, and the human race is extinct. Zhang Zan's eyelids twitched, his face turned pale with astonishment. Old man, don't joke with me. The monument is clearly broken. According to your meaning. The simple and ancient monument had obvious marks on its upper end, indicating that it was only a piece of it. Confucius looked very solemn and said in a serious tone, I cannot confirm the words of the sages of the human race, whether they are true or not. But without a doubt, this is definitely the monument created by the human emperor, which carries the destiny of the human race, and it has indeed been shattered. You have sensed the treasure of the human race, and it should be this thing without a doubt. But if you want to use it to suppress the curse of bloodlines, you probably need a complete monument. Zhang Zan nodded slightly. He approached the monument, and the curse totem on his forehead dimmed a little, but the suppression of the curse on his bloodline did not weaken significantly. He wanted to use this treasure of the human race, the monument, to suppress the curse of bloodlines, but it seemed that he needed a complete one. Of course, he definitely had to take this piece with him first. Zhang Zan couldn't help but look towards the interior of the canyon, his eyes slightly narrowed, hoping that the creatures here would be a little more reasonable. Fighting all the time was too wasteful of his energy. His own skin, Zhang Chenkin's skin, he dared not use it anymore. But before Zhang Zan could make a move, a group of people emerged from the canyon, riding on ferocious beasts, holding weapons in their hands, and vigilantly staring at him, surging with abundant spiritual power. Men, women, and children were all present, dressed plainly like ordinary mortals. This was not the key point. The key point was their cultivation. Zhang Zan looked at these people, his eyelids twitching, and a sense of shock rose in his heart. Foundation building. All of them were at the foundation building stage, even the children who were about the same height as the little girl. Even the ferocious beasts they were riding were extraordinary. Each one could be sensed to contain a surging aura of great ferocious bloodline. Descendants of great ferocious beasts. The little girl stared fixedly at these ferocious beasts, her eyes gleaming, wishing to pounce on them and have a good meal. The ferocious beasts seemed to sense the strange gaze of the little girl, and their hearts trembled. They immediately shrank their heads, and fear filled their fierce eyes. Outsider, we don't welcome you in our village. The leading woman coldly reprimanded. Zhang Zan was a little confused. He looked at the rows of simple stone houses in the canyon, then withdrew his gaze and looked at the old and young people in front of him. Zhang family village. This is a village, but how could a village have such terrifying strength? After all, even his Zhang family, a long-lived family with a heritage of millions of years, couldn't reach the level of foundation building on average. After all, the geniuses were still a minority. Even his Zhang family, with bloodline inheritance, inevitably had many clan members who couldn't cultivate. And that was the majority. Foundation building on average, if placed outside, it would probably shock the entire Celestial Wonders realm. Not to mention, there are so many descendants of great ferocious beasts. Not to mention ordinary forces, even his Zhang family seemed to not have so many pure-blooded descendants of great ferocious beasts. Zhang Zan fell silent, feeling a bit troubled. He definitely couldn't snatch it. He didn't care about these foundation-building cultivators in front of him, but he sensed several formidable profound earth-stage auras from those stone houses. Although he had recently broken through to the 7th level of foundation building due to the luck of the human race, he really wasn't confident that he could snatch the monument from several profound earth-stage experts. But if he didn't snatch it, these people were obviously hostile towards him, and there was no chance for communication at all. Just at this moment, a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly burst out from one of the stone houses. Along with it, an old voice came. "The distinguished guest has arrived, please don't be neglectful. Bring the distinguished guest to the ancestral hall." "Yes." The leading woman nodded quickly, waved her hand to signal everyone to put away their weapons, and then said to Zhang Zan, "Distinguished guest, please." This sudden turn of events made Zhang Zan a little confused, but after a moment of thought, he realized that the most feasible way to take away the monument and meet the person in charge was to go along with them. Immediately, following the crowd, they entered the canyon and arrived in front of the stone house. It was only then that Zhang Zan noticed that the seemingly ancient stone house actually concealed a mystery, faintly revealing an ancient aura of killing, which made people feel fearful. In the center of the 2 rows of stone houses was a noticeably older house, emitting a decaying smell. However, it also had a special faint vitality, as if containing the power of creation, extremely extraordinary. Boom! The door of the house opened wide. It was pitch black inside, and the scene inside couldn't be seen clearly. An old voice sounded again. "This old man has a chronic illness and cannot come far to welcome you. I hope the esteemed guests won't mind. If the esteemed guests don't mind, please come inside for a chat." Zhang Zan narrowed his eyes and became wary. This scene seemed familiar. Could there be another trap? "No need, this is fine. If there's something, just say it," Zhang Zan said calmly. "Ah," an old sigh came. "The esteemed guest is uneasy, this old man understands. In that case, let this old man come out to meet the esteemed guest." As he spoke, half of a body slowly crawled out from the dark house. An old man, with only the upper half of his body remaining, as if he had been cut in half at the waist. Zhang Zan's eyelids twitched, feeling a chill in his heart. He was not only astonished by the terrifying body of the old man, but also shocked by the old man's aura. Although he could clearly sense that the other party was in the profound earth realm, there was a sense of horror as if facing an abyss. The other party's strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed on the surface. The women in the group turned their faces away, unable to bear witnessing the scene of the old man. The old man crawled to the threshold and sat up, supporting his body with his hands. With cloudy eyes, he looked at Zhang Zan and revealed a tired smile. If this old man's perception is correct, it was the esteemed guest who triggered the people monument at the village entrance, right? Zhang Zan looked deeply at the old man and nodded silently, yes. Upon receiving Zhang Zan's confirmation, a bright smile appeared on the old man's face. "This old man has an uneasy request. I would like to use our clan's secret technique to sense the esteemed guest's bloodline. I hope the esteemed guest can allow it." Zhang Zan pondered for a moment, slowly nodded, and at the same time released the concealment of the heavenly origin secret technique. The old man's cloudy eyes reversed, giving birth to a mysterious vortex, and a wave of ancient and sacred aura flashed by. Then, the old man's eyes returned to clarity, but with a few more visible signs of excitement. "Royal blood, it really is royal blood. Guardian of the lineage, Zhang Heng, bringing the people of the guardian lineage, I have seen the young king." The old man bowed respectfully. The people of Zhang family, upon hearing this, also bowed to Zhang Zan, but their eyes still held confusion and doubt. Could it be, their mission as the Zhang family was true? Did the royal family really still have bloodline? This sudden action left Zhang Zan feeling bewildered. Guardian of the lineage, Zhang family. Seeing that Zhang Zan had doubts, the old man suppressed his excitement and smiled. This old man knows that the young king has many questions in his heart. Please listen as this old man slowly explains. The human emperor created the People Monument, which carries the luck and destiny of the human race. The People Monument is an extremely important sacred object for the human race. Therefore, the human emperor specially appointed a mountain god to guard the people monument, guarding the luck and destiny of the human race. The mountain god is the ancestor of our Zhang family. As the descendants of the mountain god's bloodline, our Zhang family upholds the will of the mountain god and guards the people monument together with the mountain god, known as the guardian lineage. At the end of the ancient era, the human emperor disappeared. Along with the 8 human kings and the 8 royal families, they were secretly attacked by the Kangming demon emperor. The bloodline declined and withered, and the human race suffered an unprecedented catastrophe. To ensure the safety of the people monument, the mountain god brought some members of our Zhang family and presented the people monument to this world, hiding from disasters caused by heaven and man. However, when the ancient catastrophe arrived, this world was exposed. Powerful enemies invaded, and the mountain god fought against them alone. Although he annihilated the enemy army, he also perished due to exhaustion. Upon hearing this, Zhang Zan was momentarily stunned and instinctively looked up at the sky. This god, who was draped in the sky as a shroud and used the heavens and earth as a coffin. The old man followed Zhang Zan's gaze and looked at the sky, gazing at the body of the god, his eyes filled with reverence and sorrow. He sighed, yes, he is the bloodline ancestor of our guardian lineage, the mountain god. The mountain god, lifelong guardian monument, fought until exhausted. Zhang Zan stared at the body of the god, feeling deep respect in his heart. He dedicated his entire life to the human race. Why did the monument break? Why are you guardians here? And, what is this place exactly? Zhang Zan turned to the old man, pouring out all his doubts. The old man smiled bitterly. Young king, let this old man explain slowly. This world is called the Zhongguang world. It was a newly born world when the mountain god found it, still in a relatively primitive state with few living beings. However, the spiritual energy of the world was extremely abundant, and the laws of the Great Tao were easily comprehensible. Our overall strength as the guardians has also greatly improved. But compared to the powerful enemies that invaded during the ancient catastrophe, our numbers were still too few to resist. To protect the guardian monument from being taken by the enemy and to preserve our lineage, the mountain god sacrificed itself and used a powerful divine ability to annihilate the enemy. However, the terrifying aftermath also eroded this world, causing it to shatter into multiple fragments, with the heavens and earth incomplete and the great Tao disintegrating. With the loss of the power of the heavens and earth, strong individuals at the heavenly origin realm and above gradually perished under the erosion of the chaotic rules of the heavens and earth, and since then, no one has been able to step into the heavenly origin realm. The monument also shattered in the chaos of the world's destruction and turned into 5 pieces, which fell into the hands of my Zhang family. Zhang Zan's eyes narrowed slightly. Obtaining all 5 pieces would not be easy. The old man's aged face carried a sense of bitterness and helplessness as he continued, although the mountain god has fallen, it is still there. With the mountain god above, we, the guardians, remember our mission and dare not have any rebellious thoughts. We have established the 5 ancient cities to present the 5 pieces of the monument, passing it down from generation to generation. The 5 ancient cities gradually split into 5 lineages. Although there are disagreements, they still maintain overall unity. But, the human heart is unpredictable. As time went on, the differences between the lineages grew larger, and even voices of rebellion and defiance against the mountain god emerged. The old man's emotions became visibly agitated, his tone filled with anger, the anger of a faith being trampled upon. Among the 4 lineages, especially among their newly born geniuses, those in their 30s and 40s who have reached the profound earth realm, they are dissatisfied with being trapped here for their entire lives, unable to make progress. They wasted their own talents and developed thoughts of abandoning their mission and leaving this place to pursue their own paths. They have abandoned their mission and tainted the bloodline that flows within them. The old man's words were intense, but they were filled with more helplessness and sorrow. But this proposal received the support of the majority of the Zhang family. Although my lineage strongly opposed it, we were ultimately powerless to stop them. We were even expelled and ostracized by them, forced to live in hiding here. Zhang Zan's expression froze, unable to pass judgment. Honestly speaking, he didn't think there was anything wrong with their choices. In this fragmented world, guarding a mission without a visible future, anyone would have other thoughts. especially those geniuses with monstrous talents, in their 30s and 40s, who have already reached the profound Earth realm. One must know, such terrifying cultivation speed, even in the celestial wonders realm, it would take tens of thousands of years to produce one. Such peerless geniuses naturally have ambitions. How could they willingly let their paths, full of infinite possibilities, be completely blocked by a vague ancestral mission? If he were to be honest with himself, he would probably have the same thoughts and make the same choice. However, since this world is a fragment of the Zhongguang world and the dwelling place of the guardian lineage, why is it called the true divine realm? The chaotic and incomplete rules of this world, where even the heavenly origin realm cannot be reached, how could a true God be born? The old man's next words unraveled Zhang Zan's doubts. They, the four veins, will use the power of the human steel to send out the most monstrous geniuses of this world, once every 100 years. The old man's eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse. Their betrayal of their mission has finally brought them retribution. It's probably our lineage that was expelled 30,000 years ago. One of the geniuses who left our lineage has returned. He has already achieved true godhood. Zhang Zan's heart stirred. Could it be, this is the origin of the true God's mystery realm? But how did the true God, who returned in glory, end up dead? With the return of the true God, those few lineages were ecstatic, more convinced that their choice was right, and they mocked us even more, ridiculing our ignorance. A mocking smile appeared on the old man's face. They want to go further and ask that true God for help, to move the entire clan and go to the celestial wonders realm. But they don't know that true God has long been targeted by someone. Some powerful beings in the celestial wonders realm had long discovered that he carried the bloodline of protection and had been deceiving him, hoping to use him to find this world and seize the human steel. On the day that the true God opened the passage to the celestial wonders realm, thousands of powerful beings descended and forcefully broke in. Only then did the true God realize he had been deceived. He fought back in anger, vowing to resist to the death. But one fist is no match for four hands, and the true God ultimately fell at the hands of the enemy, dying in this world. Those four veins didn't even have the heavenly origin realm, let alone being a match, resulting in countless deaths and injuries. In the end, if it weren't for the residual will of the mountain gods remains being stirred by the human steel, unleashing an overwhelming divine might and annihilating the invading enemies, I'm afraid the human steel would have long fallen into their hands, and the protection of the five veins would have ceased to exist. This is the punishment the mountain god gave them for their betrayal. The old man said this with a red face, his tone filled with anger and sadness. Anger at the other side's betrayal of their ancestral mission, which brought disaster, almost allowing the enemy to seize the human steel. But as members of the Zhang family, sharing the same bloodline, they felt the same sorrow when the other side suffered a calamity, naturally filled with sadness. Zhang Zan remained silent. Wealth and fortune move people's hearts, let alone the human steel, a sacred object that carries the luck and destiny of the human race. This situation is also within reason. After all, the human heart is the most complex thing. When Zhang Zan looked at the old man again, there was a hint of respect in his eyes. Because there are too many situations that are within reason, it highlights their perseverance, which is more valuable and noble. Although he didn't understand their stubbornness, their dedication to their ancestral mission, guarding here for generations, only to protect the human steel and the luck and destiny of the human race, this kind of guardianship and sacrifice filled with spirit, as a member of the human race, he must sincerely admire and be grateful for it. After a moment of silence, Zhang Zan sighed in a deep voice, "You have worked hard." Upon hearing this, tears welled up in the old man's eyes. He straightened his withered hands and half of his body pressed against the ground, bowing to Zhang Zan, and said with a resounding voice, "With young king's words, our lineage's efforts have been worthwhile." The old man thanks the young king. The old man's body trembled uncontrollably, refusing Zhang Zan's support. He looked around at the people of the tribe and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, gather." Buzz. A thick and simple aura surged out from each stone house, one after another. There were middle-aged people covered in injuries from competing for cultivation resources, elderly people walking with canes, struggling to move, women who had just given birth, holding their babies, young children with innocent faces but strong determination. Two elderly people in the profound earth realm also walked out of the old man's house. Like the old man, their bodies were damaged and their skin clung to their bones, appearing terrifying. If it weren't for their cultivation levels, which were exceptionally strong and far beyond comprehension, the scene before them would have looked like a village in the mortal world that had suffered hardships. Under the play of fate and the impact of calamity, they struggled to survive, continuing with a weak but tenacious vitality. Led by the old man, everyone silently followed behind. There were no significant fluctuations in their expressions, neither joy nor sorrow. They walked out of the village and headed towards the monument of humanity. Zhang Zan stared blankly at this scene, feeling an indescribable shock and moved by it, shaking his heart and even his Dao heart. His Dao heart trembled. Buzz. The way of the sword emerged on its own, and the sharp sword intent slowly melted away, drop by drop. The figure of the master appeared, looking at Zhang Zan, who was in a strange state, with a mix of surprise and doubt. This kid, has he comprehended something again? No, even if it's the legendary Enlightenment sacred body, it's impossible to comprehend things so easily, right? Moreover, there doesn't seem to be any great truth or principle being presented now. How did this kid comprehend it? Little girl, what's the situation with your father? The master couldn't help but look at the girl. He had probably guessed that this child carried some ancient inheritance and needed a large amount of energy to unlock and inherit it. Perhaps, with the other party's inheritance, he could see the reason behind Zhang Zan's comprehension. But the girl was staring at the ferocious beasts, drooling, and thinking about how to quietly eat them. Being disturbed by the master, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Then, the girl glanced at Zhang Zan, withdrew her gaze, and muttered, "Still a master. Can't you see it? Father is comprehending his own sword path." The master's pupils contracted, and he exclaimed in disbelief, "He's only in the spirit transformation realm. How could he have already walked out of his own sword path?" He hadn't even thought about this before. He only thought that Zhang Zan had entered a state of enlightenment. It was only after being reminded by the girl that he suddenly realized it, and his heart was immediately filled with shock and astonishment. Zhang Zan had actually already walked out of his own sword path. Although it was still in its infancy and had a long way to go before it took shape, this was still an unimaginable step. It should be noted that only by reaching the Dao fusion realm would one have the opportunity to try to walk out of their own path. And even then, it was only an opportunity. In fact, most of the powerful Dao fusion realm experts were absolutely unable to do it. In reality, some of the strongest experts in the venerable realm, who were revered as heavenly venerables, were able to surpass others because they had walked out of their own path. In other words, Zhang Zan, who had just reached the spirit transformation realm, had already revealed the potential of a heavenly venerable. The master stared blankly at Zhang Zan, seeing his sword intent turning into water, and a warm sword aura emanating from his body, as if it contained a special vitality. He was deeply shocked in his heart. Sword, a weapon of killing, with endless sharpness, unmatched in slaughter, when will it show signs of vitality? Zhang Zan, what exactly is the sword path he has realized? Making a big fuss. Seeing the absent-minded appearance of her husband, the young woman couldn't help but pout. Could her father be an ordinary person? Realizing one's own sword path, isn't that a normal thing? And as for her husband, he hasn't seen much of the world. Afterwards, the young woman no longer paid attention to this old man, and continued to stare at the ferocious beasts, pondering how to devour them. At this moment, the old man led a group of people and arrived in front of the stone monument. Thump. They all knelt down, devoutly kowtowing. The old man gazed at the stone monument, his aged eyes shimmering with tears. Without hesitation, he cut his hands, and blood gushed out. With his own bloodline guarding the lineage, he wiped the stone monument, and the blood soaked into it. The smooth surface of the monument revealed mysterious patterns, radiating brilliance. A vast and profound aura surged out, like clouds and mist, with an indescribable heaviness, as if it were an ancient mountain suppressing time and space. The vast aura surged towards the sky, merging into the remains of the mountain god. Buzz. The vast and profound sky seemed to brighten a bit, and the vortex formed by starlight slowly rotated. The old man and the others all looked towards the sky, gazing at the remains of the mountain god. In the old man's voice, there was a hoarse tone filled with suppressed excitement, and a touch of moving sobbing. Guarding the descendants, I pay my respects to the mountain god. Our lineage, upholding the teachings of the mountain god, remembering the mission of guardianship, generation after generation, never daring to waver even a bit. Even though the 5 lineages have separated and we have been forced to leave, surviving in this difficult place, with scarce resources and unable to continue. The people immediately burst into tears, their hearts filled with grievances, pouring out all at once. They had endured too much suffering in this place, even if it was just raising their descendants and allowing their offspring to grow up smoothly, it was extremely difficult. They not only had to be vigilant against beast attacks at all times, but also had to be careful of the energy storms generated by the chaotic rules of this broken world. They also had to guard against the occasional harassment and persecution from the other 4 lineages. Since the ancient Zhang family's 5 lineages fell apart, their lineage was forced out of the ancient city, and it had been 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000 years ago, their lineage had nearly 10,000 people. Now, if you add up the old and the young, men and women, there were only 52 people left. As if sensing their grievances, the remains of the mountain god trembled slightly, and a hazy starlight descended from the sky, pouring into the bodies of the people. It was as if an invisible hand gently comforted these descendants who were full of grievances. The people instantly burst into tears. In front of the mountain god, they were all children, children who had suffered endless grievances. After a moment, the old man wiped away his tears, a smile appearing on his aged face. He kowtowed once again, reporting to the mountain god, "The young king has arrived. I wish to continue upholding the mission of guarding the lineage, leading the descendants to follow the young king, and guarding the glory of the human race. I hope the mountain god will bestow guidance." They guarded the lineage, the stone monument, and the luck and destiny of the human race. If they were to follow the young king, it would naturally be the same principle. The young king carried the will of humanity, he was the seed of the human king. If they were to protect this successfully enlightened human king, they would also fulfill their mission of guarding the lineage. After all, the stone monument was just an inanimate object, but if this person were to become an enlightened human king, he would be able to lead the entire human race to revive, reaching the pinnacle of the heavens, and restoring the glory of the ancient and even primordial eras. Of course, there was one more thing he was very clear about. If they continued like this, constrained by the limitations of this broken world, the extinction of their lineage was only a matter of time. If this young king did not appear, they would naturally uphold the teachings of the mountain god, steadfastly fulfilling their mission, continuing to cultivate here until death. But the appearance of the young king gave them hope. He knew that this was the mountain god's reward for them for faithfully fulfilling their mission. To follow the young king, to guard the young king's enlightenment, this was an encounter that could not be sought after, but only encountered by chance. The old man's position was obviously highly respected, and he was trusted and loved by everyone. There was no doubt or hesitation in the people's acceptance of the old man's choice. They all kowtowed without hesitation, saying in unison, "We hope the mountain god will bestow guidance." Chapter 71. The deep sky suddenly stirred up a storm, with swirling starlight and flowing radiance, displaying an indescribable splendor. Boom! The stone monument began to tremble violently, and the ancient aura surged out, enveloping the entire desolate mountain. The simple brilliance flickered and emitted strands of sacred human luck, flowing towards Zhang. Zhang didn't perceive much of this. At this moment, he was deeply immersed in a profound understanding. His sword path was about to undergo a transformation again. A few days ago, in the royal city, due to his wholehearted devotion, he touched his Tao heart, causing his sword path to gain some special qualities, becoming even sharper and more powerful. And this time, perhaps influenced by the spirits of the elders and catalyzed by the will of humanity, he had a new realization, and his sword path underwent another transformation. A vitality that should not have appeared in the sword path emerged. After this realization, his sword intent would reach perfection. More importantly, he had a strong intuition, he would walk his own path in the sword. Human luck poured into Zhang Zan's body, and the will of humanity manifested. On a hazy continent, countless human figures gathered around the ancient and sacred human altar. On the human altar, there was a majestic throne. Sitting high on the throne was a burly figure wearing armor and a helmet, enveloped in a hazy radiance, exuding a majestic aura, overlooking the world. As the human monument surged, human luck merged into Zhang Zan's body. On the hazy face of the majestic figure, a clear corner of an eye gradually appeared. There was no need to say more. Everyone suddenly realized that this clear corner of an eye belonged to the young King Zhongzhan. The elders and other members of the Zhong family who guarded the lineage were filled with intense excitement. The manifestation of the human king's omen further confirmed that Zhongzhan was indeed the chosen young king, destined by human luck and fate. Immediately, they all bowed respectfully. At this moment, outside the desolate mountain, the void rippled like the surface of water, forming layers of folds. 5 outstanding talents dressed in pure yang sword robes walked out. Before they had a chance to investigate the surrounding situation, they noticed the strange scene in the desolate mountain and sensed the sacred human luck. It seems that we are lucky. We have just entered the true divine realm and encountered an opportunity. One of the outstanding talents smiled, speaking in a relaxed tone with a hint of contentment. They came from the Pure Yang Sword Palace, following Swordmaster Heng to the southern divine continent. They originally intended to capture Zhang Chenkin and seize the Jixia Academy from him, but that grandson Zhang Chenkin was too cunning. The other 4 outstanding talents also smiled. Immediately, they turned into sword light and swiftly flew towards the desolate mountain. Following these 5 people, the void rippled again, and a young man with closed eyes walked out, strolling leisurely. It was Zhang Hong, the divine bone of the Zhang family. Hey, there really is a problem. Zhang Hong sneered and crushed the quota talisman in his hand. He was worried that the quota talisman might be fraudulent, so he didn't use it. Instead, he used some rules to randomly teleport, but he was still affected by the quota talisman, which delayed his arrival. Zhang Hong slightly raised his closed eyes, and a golden divine light flickered, confirming his current location, while also sensing the approximate location of the divine object he needed, the mountain-shaking cauldron. I actually teleported here. Zhang Hong frowned slightly. This place was a bit far from the mountain-shaking cauldron. Immediately, Zhang Hong looked towards the desolate mountain and naturally sensed the strangeness there. Opportunity. The mountain-shaking cauldron is far away, so there's no rush for now. Since there is a chance with human luck, it's worth exploring. If there is something to gain, it would be a good thing to take it along the way. Zhang Hong pondered. Then, he calmly walked towards the desolate mountain. With someone taking the lead, there was no need for him to be impatient. It would be better to reap the benefits as a bystander. Moreover, his cultivation was only at the divine embryo realm. Even if he had means to temporarily manipulate the rules of this world, there were still many restrictions. If he hid in the shadows, he could easily take advantage. But if he became the target of everyone's attacks and was targeted by those profound Earth realm geniuses, no matter how many means he had, it would be impossible to turn the tide. At this time, the 5 outstanding talents from the Pure Yang Sword Palace had already arrived at the entrance of the gorge. They were immediately attracted by the phenomenon behind Zhongzhan and their pupils contracted as they exclaimed, "The human king's omen." Then, they looked at the human monument surging with human luck and immediately concluded that Zhongzhan was receiving the inheritance from the monument. The inheritance of the human king. The 5 young talents were filled with excitement, their eyes gleaming with greed. The old man and the others naturally noticed these young talents. Their faces turned slightly cold as they moved forward, holding weapons and blocking the path in front of the 5. "We don't welcome you here. Please leave immediately," the old man said coldly. The 5 young talents looked at the old man and immediately showed disdain. How dare a half-witted waste like him shout in front of them? "I'm not afraid to tell you that we come from the Eastern Divine Continent's Pure Yang Sword Palace." The leader of the young talents spoke arrogantly, his gaze already bypassing the old man and falling on Zhongzhan. Although he couldn't determine the other party's strength, the way he was dressed clearly indicated that he was a newcomer, most likely from a force in the southern divine continent. Therefore, he chose to directly address Zhongzhan and coldly admonished, "I kindly advise you to stop accepting the inheritance. Otherwise, it won't end well for you. Furthermore, our Pure Yang Sword Palace's swordsmen have also come in person this time. If you don't hand over the inheritance now and we report it to the swordsman, it won't be as simple as just you dying. I'm not afraid to tell you that our swordsman is an invincible figure from the previous era. He was born with a sword heart and has long entered the profound earth realm. His swordsmanship has even reached the mid-stage of sword intent." This young talent looked disdainfully at the old man and the others, sneering, "With the terrifying combat power of our swordsman, we don't even need a second strike to kill all of you." The other 4 young talents also smiled. In fact, the young talents of their pure Yang Sword Palace were generally weaker in talent compared to other top sects. They were often ridiculed and mocked by various sects, which naturally filled them with humiliation but also helplessness. It wasn't until the emergence of the swordsman, Henge, that they felt a sense of turning the tables. Those who used to ridicule them naturally had to be repaid in kind. In other words, these 5 people now had the mentality of small people who had achieved success. However, they relied on Henge, not themselves. The old man and the others remained unmoved, only coldly staring at the 5, as if they were watching ignorant clowns. Zhang Zan continued to comprehend his own swordsmanship and naturally paid no attention to them. The 5 young talents' expressions froze. They spoke to themselves, but no one paid them any attention. This situation undoubtedly made them extremely embarrassed. They immediately became angry and ashamed. Stubborn fools. The 5 of them angrily shouted, summoning their spirit swords and attacking the old man and the others. Although they were small people who had achieved success, the strength of these 5 young talents from the pure Yang Sword Palace was not weak. They all had the cultivation of the late stage of spirit transformation and practiced the powerful sword techniques of the pure Yang Sword Palace. While they might not be invincible at the same level, when they joined forces, they could barely fight against ordinary profound Earth Realm cultivators. But in front of the old man and the others, they were definitely not enough. Deal with them cleanly and don't disturb the young king. The old man ordered calmly. Yes, everyone responded. Immediately, they all wielded their weapons and engaged in battle. In order to suppress the fluctuations of the battle to the minimum, to achieve a quick victory, and to avoid disturbing the young king, the Zhang family members all mobilized, except for the old man, the only 2 profound Earth Realm cultivators, and the 10 spirit transformation cultivators. The 10 spirit transformation cultivators joined forces to set up a powerful killing formation, concealing their killing intent like a vast ocean. Buzz. In an instant, the 5 young talents were enveloped within it. But the killing formation didn't suppress or kill them. The purpose of the killing formation was simply to trap them and prevent the battle's aftermath from spreading and disturbing the young king. Immediately, the 2 profound Earth Realm old men entered the formation. Their crippled bodies suddenly burst forth with a fierce and wild aura, like a stormy sea. The eyes of the 5 young talents widened in shock. 2 profound Earth Realm cultivators. Only at this moment did they realize that they had been seeking death all along. No. Accompanied by the 5's consecutive cries of despair, the battle quickly came to an end. The result was obvious. As the formation dissipated, the bloodied bodies of the 5 young talents were scattered on the ground. However, the 2 profound Earth Realm old men did not leave. They looked towards another direction, their gaze cold and filled with killing intent. The 10 spirit transformation cultivators were the same, their expressions solemn as they stood ready. The old man also floated over, his eyes filled with undisguised killing intent. He said coldly, to the friend who wants to play the role of a fisherman, I advise you to give up on this idea. Under the cold gaze of the crowd, above a giant stone, a dazzling divine light flickered. The figure of Zhang Hong slowly emerged. His tightly closed eyes lifted slightly, meeting the gaze of the crowd. His brows furrowed involuntarily, and a sense of vigilance rose in his heart. He used some of the rules of this world to conceal himself, confident that he could deceive the perception of the profound Earth Realm. But he still exposed himself. Not only did these 3 crippled profound Earth elders notice him, even these nascent soul realm cultivators also discovered his presence. These people should not be underestimated, Zhang Hong thought to himself. Zhang Hong clasped his hands and said calmly, I have no intention of being enemies with all of you. I will leave now. Immediately, his figure gradually distorted and he left using the rules of this world. Seeing this, the elders' eyelids twitched, revealing a look of surprise. With their strength, they couldn't even see how the other party left. Fortunately, the other party had no ill intentions. One of the profound Earth elders said in a deep voice. The elders nodded slightly, secretly relieved. That person clearly only had the cultivation level of the nascent soul realm, but he was able to easily leave under their watchful eyes. Just this ability alone was already extraordinary. If a conflict had really arisen, they might have been able to deal with the other party, but it would definitely have taken some effort. This would undoubtedly disturb the young king, which was not what they wanted. On the other side, Zhang Hong, who had left, appeared on a desolate hill outside the barren mountains. With his tightly closed eyes, he stared at the direction of the barren mountains, emitting a golden divine light, giving off an indescribable sense of holiness. He was now using the preliminary stage of the divine ability, the Thousand Laws Heavenly Eye, to investigate the situation of the human steel. His gaze penetrated through the void and first looked at the human steel. The human steel. Zhang Hong's eyes jumped, unable to hide his surprise. How could there be a human steel on the edge of this territory? The human steel was a sacred object created by the human emperor, used to carry the luck and destiny of the human race. It was truly an unparalleled treasure. Zhang Hong's heart suddenly became hot. Although the human steel was not what he needed, how could he not be tempted by such a sacred object of the human race? But the strength of those indigenous people is not to be underestimated. Even if I manipulate the rules of this place, I'm afraid it won't be easy to take the human steel. Zhang Hong hesitated a bit. His goal was still the divine artifact, the mountain-shaking cauldron. If he were to be injured or obstructed here, it would undoubtedly create resistance to his acquisition of the mountain-shaking cauldron. In this life, he cultivated the Thousand Laws Heavenly Eye divine ability, and the most crucial divine object was the mountain-shaking cauldron. The mountain-shaking cauldron was a divine artifact once held by the mountain god above the sky, containing a small part of the power wielded by the mountain god. If he could successfully seize and refine it, turning it into the foundation of the Thousand Laws Heavenly Eye, not only would the Thousand Laws Heavenly Eye be able to reach a higher level, but it also meant he would have the opportunity to touch the power of the gods. Still in the nascent soul realm, yet possessing a trace of divine power. The horror of his foundation at that time was self-evident. Therefore, the mountain-shaking cauldron was of utmost importance. The human steel, although extremely precious, for him, it was more like an unexpected surprise rather than a necessity. Of course, he was not willing to give up on such a sacred object of the human race. Zhang Hong suddenly fell into hesitation and continued to investigate. At this moment, his gaze moved away from the human steel and fell on Zhang Zan. His brows furrowed. How could it be this kid? He immediately recognized that the other party was the Zhang family disciple who had passed through the portal without any hindrance earlier. But Zhang Hong couldn't understand how this kid had infiltrated among these indigenous people. And he even gained their recognition and obtained the inheritance of the human steel. Truly a monstrous prodigy with a bloodline reverting to its ancestors. Zhang Hong couldn't help but exclaim. At the same time, he gave up on the idea of the human steel and turned around to leave, rushing towards the location of the mountain-shaking cauldron. Firstly, there were too many obstacles, and he wasn't confident that he could successfully obtain the human steel. The second point is, as members of the Zhang family, there is no need for him to plunder the other party's opportunities. After all, this bloodline-reverting monster's methods are too mysterious, and he is also wary of him to some extent. Without a direct conflict of interest, it is better not to provoke him. On this side, Zhang Zan has finally finished his comprehension. His sharp sword intent has completely melted away, revealing a tenacious vitality, while still concealing a hidden edge within. Buzz. Zhang Zan opens his eyes, and his water-like sword intent sweeps through. His aura becomes even more profound, exuding a sense of returning to simplicity. The hidden edge is restrained, gentle as water, giving off a sense of natural Tao. The old man and the others suddenly feel Zhang Zan's swordsmanship, and a chill runs down their spines. It's not because the sword intent of the young king is too powerful, but because his sword intent seems to be naturally flawless and carries a faint sense of the overall human trend. Their intuitive feeling is not like facing a single swordsmanship, but facing the resolute and magnificent human race. It's just that the young king is still in the spirit transformation realm. If he steps into the profound earth realm, they are afraid that they will not be able to match him with just one sword. Truly worthy of the young king. Everyone is amazed, and their eyes towards the young king are full of respect. Sword intent perfected. Zhang Zan reveals a satisfied smile. Of course, his satisfaction is definitely not just because his sword intent has reached perfection. More importantly, he has taken the first steps on his own path of swordsmanship. His swordsmanship is the sword of humanity. The stronger the human race, the heavier his sword becomes. He has a premonition that when his swordsmanship reaches perfection, he may be able to bear the aspirations, luck, and life force of the human race, and use the human race as his sword. This is largely due to the human will that is bestowed upon him, but his special comprehension of swordsmanship is also indispensable. Even if he hadn't comprehended that segment of swordsmanship in the royal city, he would not have been able to reach this point today. Zhang Zan satisfactorily restrains his sword intent, then looks at the stone monument, and his mind has already established a certain connection with it. With a casual move, the stone monument trembles, then rises from the ground, quickly shrinking and turning into a piece of incomplete jade, flying into Zhang Zan's forehead. Buzz! Ancient brilliance flickers, revealing a vast aura, sacred and extraordinary, forming a semi-transparent seal that is fiercely branded onto the cursed totem. The cursed totem flickers crazily, as if struggling desperately. Then, eerie black mist surges out, forming a special power of rules, attempting to shatter the seal. However, the seal formed by the stone monument is extremely strong. No matter how the cursed totem struggles, it cannot shatter it. In the process of expansion and contraction, a dynamic balance is formed. Zhang Zan slightly senses it and feels a sense of relief. As a sacred object of the human race, the stone monument can indeed suppress the bloodline curse. Now, the power of the bloodline curse that has invaded his bloodline has already weakened significantly. When he first obtained the human will, he only had 3 years of lifespan left. But now, conservatively estimating, he can live for another 10 years or more. Of course, breaking through the heavenly origin realm within 10 years is still extremely difficult. As for stepping into the true God realm within 10 years, it is even more like a fantasy. If I can obtain the other 4 stone monuments and use the complete sacred objects of the human race to suppress the bloodline curse, I should be able to further extend my remaining lifespan. At least, reaching 100 years should not be a problem. Zhang Zan secretly ponders. Immediately, Zhang Zan raises his eyes slightly and looks at the old man, directly asking, "How can I obtain the other 4 stone monuments?" Return, young king, participate in the trial of the human steel jointly held by the 5 clans. The old man's aged eyes lifted slightly, gazing at the remains of the mountain god in the sky. His tone was deep and solemn as he slowly spoke. Whenever a monstrous being is born in each clan, the 5 clans will use their own bloodline to awaken the will of the mountain god's remains, thus awakening the human steel. At the same time, the trial of the human steel will be held in the first ancient city, and those who pass the trial can attempt to establish a connection with the human steel. The old man withdrew his gaze and looked at Zhang Zan. As the young king carries the will of humanity, the human steel will surely choose the young king, just as it did earlier. In other words, as long as the young king passes the trial, he can subdue the other 4 pieces of the human steel and take them all away. Zhang Zan nodded slightly, deep in thought about the trial of the human steel. When did the most recent trial begin? The old man respectfully replied, "Young king, I have just awakened the will of the mountain god's remains and awakened the human steel. The other 4 clans have no choice but to hurry and start the trial of the human steel." "What do you mean?" Zhang Zan's heart stirred. "We can still make it to the first ancient city now," the old man nodded. Zhang Zan nodded. "How do we get to the first ancient city?" "Well," the old man hesitated for a moment, then suddenly prostrated himself with both hands on the ground, bowing his head, and respectfully said, "We wish to follow the young king, hoping that the young king will grant us permission." The others also bowed their heads and paid their respects, saying, "We hope the young king will grant us permission." Zhang Zan was slightly absent-minded, looking at the people in front of him with a complicated expression. He could feel the enthusiasm in their hearts. This group of respectable people was sincere and simple, without the scheming of external cultivators. Moreover, they had exceptional talent, each one possessing the aura of a genius. If not for the constraints of this fragmented world, they would have long become supreme families. Such a group of people voluntarily submitting to him, he had no reason to refuse. If he were to bring them back to the celestial wonders realm, given time, their achievements would be unimaginable. They would undoubtedly become a powerful foundation for him. Therefore, Zhang Zan, unlike his usual caution, decisively accepted their submission. He bowed his head and helped the old man up, saying solemnly, "There isn't much I can do right now, but I can promise that I will not let your persistence go to waste." Upon hearing this, the old man's eyes became moist. The promise from the young king was the greatest affirmation of their million-year-long perseverance. Thank you, young king. Immediately, the old man looked at the others and instructed, except for children and pregnant women, everyone else will accompany me to protect the young king and go to the first ancient city together. Yes, everyone responded. Before this, in the first ancient city, the disturbance caused by the old man awakening the will of the mountain god's remains and the human steel had also had an impact here. In the central area of the first ancient city, there was also a piece of the human steel. At this moment, the human steel trembled gently, and strands of sacred human luck spread out like clouds and mist, presenting a hazy phenomenon. The members of the Zhang family in this clan felt something and looked up at the human steel, filled with astonishment and uncertainty. What's going on? It wasn't time for the trial of the human steel yet, so why did the human steel suddenly become restless? A middle-aged man dressed in ancient robes, with a deep aura, flew over and stood in front of the human steel, staring at it with a furrowed brow, lost in thought. He was the city lord of the first ancient city, the person in charge of the Zhang family in this clan, Zhang Ming. At this moment, another young man flew over. Bathed in divine radiance, with profound and mysterious Tao patterns circulating around his body, his face was handsome, like a young deity. Zhang Ming's son, Zhang Chen. If someone were to probe with their divine soul, they would be shocked to discover that both of these individuals had reached the profound earth realm in their cultivation. Father, what exactly is going on? Why did the stone monument suddenly become active? Zhang Chen looked puzzled and subconsciously speculated, could it be that the people from the three veins have triggered the will of the mountain god's remains without permission? They shouldn't be that foolish. Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, looked expressionless at the stone monument and said coldly, only when the five veins jointly activate the will of the mountain god's remains with their bloodline can the stone monument be truly awakened. If they were to trigger the will of the mountain god's remains without permission, at most they would only activate the stone monument's divine anomalies, unable to establish a connection. Not only would they gain no benefits, but they would also be met with hostility from our veins, with no advantages for themselves. However, Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, was unaware. There was no need to truly awaken the stone monument. Zhang Zan had already gained the stone monument's recognition and had already subjugated one. Could it be the other vein? Zhang Chen pondered for a moment and asked slowly. That vein. Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, thought for a moment and shook his head slowly. It shouldn't be. That vein has been suppressed by us working together. Although it hasn't perished, it definitely doesn't have the resources to cultivate a monstrous talent. Moreover, even if they were to cultivate a monstrous talent and activate the stone monument on their own, what use would it be? Zhang Chen nodded thoughtfully. Now that the will of the mountain god's remains has been activated, we must initiate the trial of the stone monument. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, ordered the person beside him, inform the other veins and conduct the trial of the stone monument in 3 days. Yes, the person turned and left to deliver the message to the other veins. How are your preparations? Are you confident in winning the trial of the stone monument? Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, turned to Zhang Chen and asked. Zhang Chen smiled confidently, Father, rest assured, I have successfully reached the second level of the profound earth realm and can suppress the 3 veins. Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, nodded in satisfaction, then solemnly warned, but you must not become complacent. When necessary, you can use the item I gave you. There's no need. Zhang Chen's expression froze, feeling somewhat hesitant. The competition among their veins was fierce, but it remained within a relatively controllable range. They were strictly forbidden from causing harm to each other's lives. After all, they all carried the same bloodline, descendants of the mountain god. Even the vein that had been expelled from the ancient city, although the 4 veins worked together to suppress them, they only deprived them of cultivation resources. At most, they destroyed the foundation of the younger generation. The mountain god was watching them from above, and they dared not directly kill their own people in front of the ancestor. But if he were to use that item, anyone competing against him would undoubtedly die. Zhang Chen's face turned serious, feeling somewhat hesitant. A person who only cares about themselves will be condemned by heaven and earth. Perhaps sensing Zhang Chen's hesitation, Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, spoke with a serious expression, "You have exceptional talent and possess the appearance of a monstrous talent. You are not like those who came before you. Even if you cannot establish a connection with the stone monument and make it recognize you in this trial, that is ultimately secondary. What's important is that through the stone monument, you can leave this place, this world that is like a prison." Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, patted Zhang Chen's shoulder, his tone filled with hope and expectations as a father to his son. "Our Zhang family has been trapped in this world for too long. Despite having powerful bloodline talents and an excellent cultivation environment, none of us have been able to break free and reach the heavenly origin realm. In the end, we can only be constrained by fate and perish in frustration. Child, you have the opportunity to leave, to achieve great things, and to climb to the peak. You must not give up." Upon hearing this, Zhang Chen's expression gradually became resolute, and he nodded solemnly, "I understand, father." Just then, Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, suddenly sensed something, his brows furrowing as he turned to look in a certain direction. Buzz. Above the first ancient city, ripples spread out, forming strange folds. Led by the great Luo saint-child, Xiao Tianyi, a group of outstanding individuals and monstrous talents from the great Luo sacred ground arrived here through the designated teleportation of the Quota Spirit Talisman. Outsiders. Zhang Ming, the lord of Zhang City, immediately revealed a smile, but this smile was somewhat cold, carrying a hint of a resolute killing intent. Immediately, he transmitted a divine message to all the members of the Zhang family in the first ancient city. "Capture all the outsiders, and leave none behind." Agreed. Fierce voices echoed one after another. In the ancient city, one after another members of the Zhang family rushed out, besieging the geniuses of the great Luo Holy Land. There were thousands of people in the Qiling realm, each of them wearing armor and helmets, moving in unison and with order, like a well-trained army, exuding a chilling aura that filled the heavens and earth. The sky above the ancient city seemed to have turned black. Xiao Tianyi and nearly 100 other geniuses hadn't figured out the situation yet when they realized they were already being surrounded. Their faces immediately changed, and panic filled their hearts. There were too many Qi-Ling experts, over 1,000 of them. Even though each of them was a genius with extraordinary strength surpassing the same realm, they couldn't withstand the attack of an army. Moreover, they could clearly sense that these Qi-Ling experts had profound backgrounds and extraordinary strength. Furthermore, there were several profound earth experts approaching from a distance, heading towards them. Once they were trapped, the outcome was predictable. Moreover, it was extremely strange how they were inexplicably teleported to the natives' territory. "Protect each other and retreat. Get out of the city." Xiao Tianyi shouted angrily. He immediately summoned his own sword, a simple long sword engraved with mysterious patterns, exuding an unparalleled aura, like a sword of an immortal. At the same time, Xiao Tianyi activated his own physique, the immortal body, and a brilliant immortal light burst out from his body, ethereal and vast, extremely extraordinary. The immortal essence within his body surged out, empowering his sword. Buzz. The sky, tainted black by the killing intent, suddenly brightened as if it were daytime. A vast sword energy appeared between heaven and earth. It gave people a shocking feeling of an immortal holding a sword, slashing through the heavens. The surrounding army stopped in their tracks, gazing at this sword with astonishment and deep fear. This sword was too terrifying, something that they, Qi-Ling experts, couldn't handle. Slash! Xiao Tianyi coldly shouted, manipulating his thoughts as the immense sword energy slowly descended. This supreme sword energy alone, with its aura, already crushed the rules of heaven and earth, even shattering the void like a mirror, revealing a profound dark chaos. Xiao Tianyi was well aware that only by intimidating everyone as quickly as possible could the geniuses of the great Luo Holy Land withdraw from the ancient city to the greatest extent. Otherwise, once they were restrained by the army, even he couldn't guarantee his own safety. Therefore, he directly used his most powerful move at the moment, even using the life-saving item given to him by the Holy Lord, a strand of sword energy from the great Luo immortal sword. With the immortal body and the innate affinity to the laws of heaven and earth, he was not weaker than the sacred body to some extent. This sword, powered by the immortal body, enhanced the power of the great Luo immortal sword's sword energy. Its might was earth-shattering, even a heavenly origin realm expert would have some confidence in shaking it. Zhang Chen focused his gaze, his expression serious, and murmured in surprise, "Are the geniuses from the outside world all this powerful?" To be honest, even though he had reached the profound earth second stage, he still didn't have the confidence to withstand this sword. And the opponent's cultivation aura clearly indicated that he had just entered the profound earth realm not long ago. It should be noted that unlike the Qi-Ling realm, where geniuses could fight across realms, it became much more difficult to fight across realms after entering the profound earth realm. This was because the profound earth realm began to absorb the qi of the earth's veins and bear the power of the earth, resulting in a huge gap in cultivation realms. Even a difference of one realm could be like the difference between heaven and earth. This was also the reason why Zhang Chen, at the profound earth second stage, had absolute confidence in winning against other geniuses from the three veins. However, the outsider in front of him seemed to have broken this iron rule. There are more than just billions of living beings in the celestial wonders realm. There are countless ancient traditions with profound backgrounds. It's normal for such geniuses to appear. But, such geniuses are still very rare, said Lord Zhongming with no change in his expression. He patted Zhang Chen's shoulder and comforted him, "You don't need to underestimate yourself. This is just his life-saving move, and he probably can only use it once. Moreover, you are much younger than him." Zhang Ming, who was comforting him, had already stepped out into the air, moving like shrinking into an inch, appearing in front of the army. He faced the immense sword energy unleashed by Xiao Tianyi without much movement, just opening his hands and slowly lifting them. Boom! The first ancient city, spanning thousands of feet, suddenly changed. A vast and heavy aura surged like a raging tide. The vast land is violently surging, and the majestic qi of the earth gushes out. The powerful force of the earth is bestowed upon Lord Zhongming Cheng, solidifying into a towering divine mountain. "Suppress," Lord Zhongming Cheng said calmly. The towering divine mountain slowly toppled, pressing down on the immense sword energy. Buzz. Although the immense sword energy was supported by the power of the Deluo immortal sword, it still struggled to withstand the suppression of the earth's force due to the absolute difference in strength. The vast immortal aura collapsed, and cracks appeared in the sword energy, showing signs of shattering. Xiao Tianyi, who controlled the sword energy, was also overwhelmed by the force of the earth, his body sinking. He immediately felt the opponent's terror, and his face darkened. Profound earth peak. The difference in cultivation level is too great. Even though he had a deep foundation and a powerful inheritance, he still couldn't bridge the insurmountable gap in cultivation. What the hell is this place? Xiao Tianyi couldn't help but curse in his heart, why are there so many powerful natives here? Soon, with a loud bang, the immense sword energy completely shattered, and Xiao Tianyi also suffered a backlash. Blood stained the corners of his mouth, and his aura became turbulent and chaotic. Lord Zhongming Cheng stood with his hands behind his back, looking at Xiao Tianyi calmly. He chose not to continue attacking because the trial of the human monument was about to begin, and he had to keep himself in peak condition to prevent the other three lords from having any unwarranted thoughts. After all, this person's background must be a monstrous figure from a powerful sect in the Celestial Wonders realm, or even a saint child, and he definitely had many means of self-preservation. He might not pose a threat to him, but it was still very likely that he would be injured if caught off guard. Immediately, Lord Zhongming Cheng waved his hand and indifferently ordered the army, "Leave them." Yes, the army, composed of nearly 1,000 spirit transformation realm powerhouses, shouted in a deep voice and quickly advanced towards Xiao Tianyi and the others. The geniuses of the Deluo sacred grounds' faces immediately changed. Even the saint child was not a match for the opponent. How could they break through? "Saint child, what should we do now?" A profound earth realm genius asked in a low voice beside Xiao Tianyi. Xiao Tianyi glanced at him, his face dark. "Who should I ask if not you?" After thinking for a moment, Xiao Tianyi coldly shouted, "Fight to the death, break through." Profound earth realm experts, stay with me as the rearguard. Yes, everyone responded. The great battle began. Dazzling divine abilities and profound arcane arts, mysterious rules of the great Tao, splendidly displayed in the world. The fierce aura of killing surged like dark clouds pressing down on the sky. Blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the ground of the ancient city red. For a while, the entire ancient city turned into a small battlefield. The army, composed of nearly 1,000 spirit transformation realm experts, joined forces to besiege the geniuses, using strict formations to take the lives of one Deluo sacred ground genius after another. Profound Earth realm powerhouses fought against Xiao Tianyi and the other Profound Earth geniuses. The battle seemed to be overwhelmingly one-sided. However, Xiao Tianyi and the others fought and retreated, using their lives to buy time. Gradually, they retreated to the gate of the first ancient city. "Hold on," Xiao Tianyi, covered in blood, roared in a low voice, "we will definitely break through." Yes, the geniuses fought and died, becoming more ferocious and ruthless. Meanwhile, Xiao Tianyi and the others, who were retreating, were unaware that a group of geniuses had set up an ambush in a desolate mountain 10 miles away from the first ancient city. They coldly watched their approach, waiting for them. The leader of this group of geniuses was graceful and beautiful, with a pair of crystal-clear eyes radiating a cold blue light. Surprisingly, it was desolate heaven goddess Luo Xinglan. "Goddess, everything is ready," a proud disciple reported respectfully behind Luo Xinglan. Luo Xinglan nodded slightly, her cold gaze fixed on the first ancient city, constantly monitoring the progress of the battle. Since the emergence of the true god's mysterious realm, she had been planning, all for the purpose of killing the proud disciples of the great Luo Holy Land, the extreme Tao sect, and the ancient Dark Holy sect. First, she used the Quota Spirit Talisman to teleport the proud disciples of these forces to various locations within the ancient city. With the power of these indigenous people, they would be consumed in a wave, and then they would be harvested. Of course, it would be difficult to kill them all at once. After all, the strength of these disciples from different forces should not be underestimated. However, this was only the first step of her plan. Be discreet and wait patiently. Profound Earth Realm disciples can be spared, but we must try to keep all the nascent Soul Realm disciples. Luo Xinglan's tone was cold, revealing a chilling killing intent. Yes, the proud disciples responded in a low voice, and then activated the formation, hiding themselves. At the gate of the first ancient city, self-detonate the spiritual weapons and blast open the gate. Xiao Tianyi commanded angrily, pushing back the Profound Earth experts who were entangling him with a sword. Yes, a disciple from the great Luo Holy Land, with the help of others, temporarily escaped and threw all the spiritual weapons from his storage ring towards the gate. "Detonate," the disciple roared in anguish, setting off the spiritual weapons. Boom! Chaotic and powerful energy fluctuations radiated out like a tidal wave of doomsday. The strong individuals near the gate, whether they were proud disciples of the great Luo Holy Land or people from the ancient city, were all affected by this chaotic energy. They were thrown back as if they were overturned by a tsunami. The towering and heavy gate was instantly blasted open, leaving a huge hole. "Go!" Xiao Tianyi roared with disheveled hair. At the same time, he swung his sword again towards the approaching army behind him. This sword, with the power of his immortal body, lacked the sword aura of the great Luo immortal sword, but its power far exceeded the limits of his current realm. With a grand swing, it formed an absolute chasm, avoiding the retreating army. Immediately, Xiao Tianyi activated a secret technique and swiftly chased after the escaping proud disciples. The strong individuals of the first ancient city were about to continue their pursuit. "Let them go." Lord Zhongming stood on the city wall and said calmly. Upon hearing this, everyone stopped and looked at Lord Zhongming with some confusion. They had already suffered heavy losses, and all were injured. Why didn't they continue the pursuit and keep them all? A Profound Earth expert in a black robe flew over and stood behind Lord Zhongming, respectfully saying, "Reporting to the Lord, our losses are minimal. If we continue the pursuit, we are fully confident that we can keep them all." Lord Zhongming chuckled, "What's the use of keeping them all? There's no need to rush. They must stay here for a long time. This world is so big, there will be plenty of opportunities later." The black-robed expert hesitated for a moment and responded, "Yes." "Are there any survivors?" Lord Zhongming asked. "There are 2 heavily injured and unconscious ones. Wake them up and interrogate them." Lord Zhongming stood with his hands behind his back, gazing at the direction in which Xiao Tianyi and the others hurriedly left. His eyes narrowed slightly as he said, "It would be best to find out how they got in." Well, the black-robed expert's mind stirred, and his eyes brightened. How they got in is most likely the same way they will get out. Lord Zhongming looked towards the deep sky, his eyes also becoming profound. "We have been trapped here for too long. It's time to see the sun. On the other side, Xiao Tianyi led the remaining proud disciples, rushing in panic, and were already approaching the deserted mountain where Luo Xinglan and the others were ambushing. They didn't pursue us. Let's go another 20 miles and regroup. Xiao Tianyi noticed that there were no pursuers behind them and ordered in a deep voice. This time, they had truly suffered a defeat. They had just entered the true god's mysterious realm and hadn't even figured out the situation here yet, but they had already lost nearly half of their proud disciples. Now, including him, there are only 52 people left. Saint child, something's not right, a profound earth genius said with a gloomy expression. Xiao Tianyi glanced coldly at the person, not saying anything. Of course, he knew something was wrong. Who would come up from the secret realm and be ambushed by the natives without any chance of gaining opportunities? But now, talking about these useless things, what's the point? Fortunately, the natives of the ancient city did not pursue them. They were still alive, and as long as they were alive, there was still a chance. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. One after another, a killing formation emerged, suddenly activated, rolling with a murderous aura, forming a forbidden space, trapping everyone and creating a killing situation. Kill. Without any intention of conversation, Luo Xinglan stepped forward, giving a cold order, and turned into a faint blue divine radiance, breaking through the shattering void and finding Xiao Tianyi. Dozens of geniuses appeared, wielding their divine abilities to kill. Xiao Tianyi and the others were suddenly shocked, their faces changing. We fell into a trap. Xiao Tianyi instantly understood, cursing angrily. He was still wondering why the disciples of their great Luo Holy Land were all teleported to an ancient city so uniformly, without giving them any time to react, and the natives of that ancient city directly launched a massacre against them. It turned out, it was all Luo Xinglan's scheme. The quota spirit talisman had a problem. Even the people from the Desolate Heaven divine sect had already colluded with the natives in advance. Luo Xinglan, you! Xiao Tianyi's eyes turned bloodshot, anger surged, he roared furiously, his immortal life physique was crazily stimulated, and he wielded his sword to confront Luo Xinglan. However, he had already suffered serious injuries in the previous battle, and even the life-saving great Luo immortal sword chi had been used up. At this moment, his combat power was only 70% of his peak. How could he possibly be a match for the long-prepared Luo Xinglan? Boom! The dark blue profound yin power evolved into countless ice blades, forming a sword formation. Under the dazzling dark blue divine radiance, Luo Xinglan easily slaughtered Xiao Tianyi. Deep visible bone wounds appeared on Xiao Tianyi's body, dripping with the vivid blood of immortality, staining the earth red. The situation of the other geniuses from the great Luo Holy Land was even worse. Many of them were already heavily injured, with only a tenth of their strength remaining. Now, they were being besieged by the geniuses from the Desolate Heaven divine sect, making it even more difficult to resist. In just a moment, nearly 10 geniuses had fallen under the enemy's blades, their bodies scattered on the ground. After a stick of incense, the ambush battle was over. The geniuses from the great Luo Holy Land lay scattered on the ground, except for Xiao Tianyi and the other profound Earth Realm experts who used secret techniques to escape. All the geniuses in the nascent soul realm were left behind. As for the Desolate Heaven divine sect, there were also casualties, but compared to the great Luo Holy Land, they could be ignored. This ambush was a great success. After counting the results, one of the geniuses reporting to the Divine Maiden, 4 nascent soul experts have died, 10 are heavily injured, and several are lightly injured. 47 nascent soul geniuses from the great Luo Holy Land were left behind. Xiao Tianyi and 7 profound earth experts were unable to escape. Luo Xinglan nodded in satisfaction and pondered for a moment. Send a message to the other 2 factions and inquire about their situation. Using the quota spirit talisman, she teleported the great Luo Holy Land, the extreme Dao sect, and the ancient darkness holy sect to 3 different ancient cities, and then the geniuses on their side were divided into 3 factions to carry out the ambush separately. This was the first step of her plan. If this step went smoothly, her next step would be to use her memories from her previous life to establish a good relationship with Zhang Zan. Luo Xinglan's eyes lifted slightly, looking towards a direction, passing through the dark blue radiance. That was where the true divine realm was located, and most of the opportunities in this world were there. According to her memories from her previous life, Zhongzhan would definitely go there. Report to the goddess, apart from the 6 profound Earth Realm experts, including the former sect master Ji Yufeng, all others from the extreme Dao sect have been annihilated. The Saint Child Lan Wuhai and 3 other profound Earth Realm experts from the ancient Dark Holy sect have escaped, along with 10 Peak Hualing Realm experts, while the rest have been killed, leaving behind 2 profound Earth Realm experts. Soon, messengers from the other 2 factions returned to report. Luo Xinglan nodded in satisfaction. The first step of her plan had yielded abundant results, even surpassing her expectations. Originally intending to deal with the 3 major forces, they had just entered this realm and had already lost 90% of their exceptional talents. Although most of those remaining were at the profound Earth realm, making it more challenging to deal with them, the overwhelming numbers gave her confidence that the second step of her plan would be much simpler. In that case, it would be best to establish a good relationship with Zhongzhan first. Saving the desolate heaven divine sect could not rely solely on killing a few exceptional talents from the 3 major forces. It was clear to her that only by befriending Zhongzhan, a future powerhouse who would surpass the celestial wonders realm, could the desolate heaven divine sect truly overcome its crisis. Luo Xinglan's thoughts gradually solidified, and she decisively ordered, "Inform the 4 personal disciples to go ahead and accompany me to the divine abyss. The others should gather quickly and then hide themselves. Wait for my return before proceeding with the second step of the plan." The divine abyss was located 100 miles away from the first ancient city. It was a deep abyss that spanned thousands of feet. According to the information from the indigenous people, it was where the will of the mountain god had unleashed its overwhelming power to punish invading enemies. Through her past life memories, she knew that it was the true realm of the gods. Many powerful inheritances and tempting opportunities were hidden there. At the same time, there was a seedling of the World Tree. Soon, Zhongzhan would go there and obtain the seedling of the World Tree. She would go ahead and try to obtain the seedling of the World Tree in advance. If she succeeded, she could then give it to Zhongzhan. Even if she failed, she could wait for Zhongzhan and show goodwill towards him. After all, the treasures of the World Tree seedling, the true realm of the gods, the inheritances, and the stone tablets, these seemingly extremely precious opportunities could not save the desolate heaven divine sect from its impending doom. She could give up all of them in exchange for the possibility of befriending Zhongzhan. Report to the goddess, according to the information we have obtained, the first ancient city will open the trial of the stone tablets in 3 days. Should we wait here? One of the exceptional talents hesitated and respectfully asked. No need, Luo Xinglan said calmly. The indigenous people here are very powerful, with many profound Earth Realm experts. Even if we wait here, it is uncertain whether we can participate in the trial of the stone tablets, let alone obtain them. Moreover, there are other Foss's exceptional talents watching us. Waiting here is likely just a waste of time, far inferior to proceeding with the next step of the plan. Luo Xinglan turned her head to look at the exceptional talent, her expression cold and her tone particularly solemn. Remember, our purpose in entering the true realm of the gods is not for opportunities or inheritances, but to leave behind all the exceptional talents from the 3 major forces. The exceptional talent's heart trembled, and he quickly said respectfully, yes. Spread the news of the trial of the stone tablets and let them fight for it. A cold light flashed in Luo Xinglan's azure eyes as she lightly laughed. Apart from the 3 major forces like the Great Luo Holy Land, most of the exceptional talents have been guided to the 4th ancient city by me. They must have also suffered heavy losses and accumulated a lot of anger. Spread the news of the trial of the stone tablets, lure them to gather at the first ancient city, and confront the indigenous people head-on. Under the dual stimulation of hatred and interest, I have no doubt that they will engage in direct conflict. The more they die, the easier it will be for us to harvest. The exceptional talent's heart trembled at her words and quickly bowed, saying, the goddess's strategy is unparalleled. About an hour later, at the intersection of the first ancient city, the second ancient city, and the third ancient city, within a barren valley that stretched for thousands of miles, a mysterious array's aura faintly emanated. The exceptional talents and monsters remaining from the Great Luo Holy Land, the extreme Dao sect, and the ancient Dark Holy sect had already gathered here. We have all fallen into Luo Xinglan's scheme. The young master of the extreme Dao sect, Ji Yufeng, glared with resentment. Don't let me catch her, or I will personally crush her bones. Their group from the extreme Tao sect had been teleported to the second ancient city and had also suffered an ambush from the indigenous people after barely escaping the ancient city. All the exceptional talents at the Waling realm had died on the spot, leaving only a few profound Earth realm experts who managed to escape. Even he, after fighting alone against 2 personal disciples, had suffered serious injuries and exhausted all his trump cards. The saint child of the ancient dark holy sect, Lan Wuhai, had a gloomy expression, his eyes flickering with a chilling anger. Their Ji Ming holy sect is not doing well at all. In fact, they even lost 2 profound earth experts. I can't swallow this anger. Lan Wuhai roared in a low voice, with our 3 factions combined, with over 10 profound earth experts, we have the strength to fight back and kill Luo Xinglan on the spot. Da Luo Saint Child Xiao Tianyi stood with his hands behind his back, paying no attention to their venting. Instead, he squinted his eyes and gazed at the deep sky, as if anticipating something. Before he arrived, the Holy Lord instructed him that the extreme Tao sect and the Ji Ming holy sect could be used but not overly considered. When necessary, they could be abandoned. Their Da Luo Holy Land still had a trump card. The token that established contact with the trump card was in his storage ring, but he wasn't in a hurry to use it. Even though they were suffering heavy losses and seemed to be in a desperate situation. With a faint glance at Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai, Xiao Tianyi had already made up his mind. Useless teammates who only complain are best suited as cannon fodder. Immediately, Xiao Tianyi said indifferently, the situation is still unclear. We don't even know how many people the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect has. Are we going to rush back and throw our lives away? As soon as these words were spoken, Lan Wuhai was immediately silenced and unable to refute. Ji Yufeng turned his head to look at Xiao Tianyi, his eyes filled with hostility, and he angrily questioned, are 3 factions geniuses or almost all dead? Are you planning to let this grudge go? Xiao Tianyi raised his eyes slightly, looking at Ji Yufeng, and said coldly, what's the rush? The true divine realm has just opened. We have plenty of time. Now, let's search for opportunities and improve our own strength. If we become much stronger, crushing Luo Xinglan and suppressing the geniuses of the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect will be a piece of cake. Sounds good. Ji Yufeng sneered, his voice icy, we've searched around just now, and you know it too. Not to mention opportunities, we couldn't even find ordinary spiritual herbs. It's obvious that the natives of those ancient cities have already looted everything. Search for opportunities. Do you mean entering the ancient cities and seizing opportunities from the natives? Don't forget, 90% of our geniuses died at their hands. If you're really afraid, just say it. There's no need to hide it like this. Ji Yufeng stared coldly at Xiao Tianyi, disdainfully saying, the saint child of the mighty Da Luo Holy Land, and yet you have such a temper. Truly laughable. A cold light flashed in Xiao Tianyi's eyes, but he still held back. Before establishing contact with the trump card, he still needed the support of Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai. After all, the losses of their Da Luo Holy Land were too severe. In 3 days, the first ancient city will hold the trial of the human steel. The winner can establish a connection with the human steel and have the opportunity to gain its recognition. Xiao Tianyi looked at the 2 of them with a calm expression, without any fluctuations. You should have heard of the human steel to some extent. It was cast by the human emperor and is a sacred object that carries the luck and destiny of the human race. The human steel. Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai widened their eyes, shocked and filled with a burning light. That treasure that was only recorded in ancient books, the treasure that countless people yearned for, was actually here in this world. It was said that if one gained the recognition of the human steel, it was equivalent to having the luck and destiny of the human race bestowed upon them. They would have the opportunity to become the human king, or even the revered human emperor, ruling over all the human race in the peak of power. If they could gain the recognition of the human steel. The breathing of Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai suddenly became rapid. Xiao Tianyi saw their reaction, not surprised at all, and smiled lightly, saying, with our 3 factions working together in this world, we should be able to stand undefeated. The trial of the human steel also has a certain degree of certainty. No matter which one of us wins the human steel, we will at least have our strength multiplied. At that time, it will be easy to settle the score with the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect and even capture Luo Xinglan. Looking at the two of them, Xiao Tianyi asked calmly, "Any problems with my proposal?" Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai exchanged glances, pondered for a moment, nodded, and said in a deep voice, "We'll follow your plan and seize the human steel first." Xiao Tianyi immediately revealed a smile, as if everything was under his control. But a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. How easy was it to obtain the human steel? He already had a deep understanding of the strength of the natives of those ancient cities. Even the peak profound earth experts among them were far from being able to contend with them. Their combined efforts would still be useless. By saying this, he was simply using the power of the other two factions to ensure his own safety and further delay time, waiting for the trump card prepared by the Holy Lord to arrive. On the other side, the fourth ancient city. Apart from the three major forces, the Great Luo Holy Land and others, most of the geniuses from the various factions in the southern Divine Continent, as well as some geniuses from the eastern Divine Continent, were teleported here. With their large numbers, they faced the siege from the Zhang family members of the fourth ancient city with much ease. At least, the losses were not as heavy. Zhao Fuyao's body was surrounded by starlight, harnessing the power of the stars. With the mutual protection of the geniuses from the Zhao family, she managed to break free from the pursuit of a profound earth realm expert and walked out of the fourth ancient city. Heng Jie, the pure yang sword, was surrounded by sword energy. With the sword in his hand, he fought his way out of the army of transformed spirits together with several geniuses from the pure yang sword palace. There were also dozens of geniuses from the eastern Divine Continent, each fighting for their survival. After Zhao Fuyao, Heng Jie, and a few other extraordinary geniuses escaped from the fourth ancient city, they weighed the pros and cons and temporarily gave up confronting the indigenous people of the ancient city. Instead, they continued their search for Zhang Chenkin. They still didn't believe that Zhang Chenkin would miss such a shocking secret realm of the true God. They were more inclined to believe that Zhang Chenkin had also come here, but had hidden himself. They had not yet found any trace of him. Therefore, Zhao Fuyao and the others began their search for Zhang Chenkin. As long as they could obtain the Jixia Academy on Zhang Chenkin's body, even if they returned empty-handed from the true God's secret realm this time, it would still be a huge gain for them. However, their search was destined to be like finding a needle in a haystack. The various factions in the southern Divine Continent did not want to engage in further battles. After breaking out of the fourth ancient city, they hid themselves and sought cultivation resources and opportunities in the desolate mountains. But after searching around, not to mention precious spiritual herbs, even spiritual mines had been completely plundered. The geniuses from various factions also realized that this world had long been controlled by those few ancient cities. If they wanted to obtain cultivation resources, they could only attack the ancient cities. However, no one would do that. They had already experienced the strength of the indigenous people, who were not weaker than them in terms of cultivation realm or foundation. Moreover, their numbers far exceeded theirs. What was more important was, the city lord of the ancient city was at the peak of the profound earth realm. For a while, the geniuses who entered the true God's secret realm were in an awkward situation. Like headless flies, they didn't know what to do next. Until, the news of the Man-Steel trial spread intentionally by the desolate heaven divine sect reached their ears. The Man-Steel, the sacred object that carried the luck and fate of the human race. If they could obtain it, why worry about not being able to step onto the path of invincibility and reach the pinnacle of the Tao? The hearts of the geniuses from various factions were ignited with excitement. Now that they had a goal, they were determined. They all gathered towards the first ancient city. In the desolate mountains of various factions, beams of divine light rose into the sky. The Man-Steel, they were determined to obtain it. 3 days later, the third ancient city, Xiao Tianyi, Ji Yufeng, Lan Wuhai, Zhao Fuyao, Heng Jie, and other geniuses from various factions gathered outside the first ancient city, staring at it with fierce eyes, all with the intention of attacking it together. However, it is worth mentioning that the number of geniuses had dropped to less than 600, nearly a 40% decrease from the beginning. It can be seen that Luo Xinglan's killing had a very obvious effect. Especially the three major forces like the Great Luo Holy Land, under the discreet gazes of other forces, had to further unite. More than 10 profound earth experts occasionally released their pressure to deter others. There was no other way, their numbers were too few now. Although there were 17 profound earth experts, who seemed to be powerful at the top, when all their numbers were added up, there were only 27 people. On the other hand, the other factions in the southern divine continent, even the weakest Red Flame Holy Land, now had nearly 50 geniuses. The huge difference in numbers caused these factions to greatly reduce their fear of the three major forces. Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai's faces were gloomy, filled with resentment. They actually had to guard against these small fries now. With their formidable strength and terrifying background, when have they ever been in such a sorry state? All of this can be attributed to the Desolate Heaven Divine Sect, to Luo Xinglan. On the other hand, Xiao Tianyi looked relaxed. In these 3 days, he had already established contact with the backup, and now all he had to do was wait quietly for the backup to appear. By then, a cold light flashed in Xiao Tianyi's eyes, and he could also dominate the scene. Zhao Fuyao, Henge, and other geniuses and monsters from the eastern divine continent were also gathered here, but their focus was clearly not on the first ancient city, but on secretly observing the geniuses around them, trying to find Zhang Chenkin's figure. They were well aware of the strength of the natives, so their chances of snatching the People's Steel were far less than finding Zhang Chenkin and seizing the Jixia Academy. The Divine Maiden, there is no sign of Zhang Chenkin. A genius from the Zhao family whispered to Zhao Fuyao. Zhao Fuyao nodded, a glimmer of starlight flickering in her eyes. She was not pleased with this Zhang Chenkin, he was really good at hiding. On the other side, at this moment in the first ancient city, with the arrival of people from the other 3 ancient cities, the defensive forces were extremely strong, causing alarm. On the ancient and towering city walls, there were a total of 50 profound Earth Realm experts. There were nearly 3,000 nascent Soul Realm cultivators. Obviously, the natives of the 4 ancient cities had all gathered here. Although the 4 sects had different ideologies, they naturally had to present a united front against these outsiders. Moreover, the trial of the People's Steel was approaching, which was a major event for their Zhang family and could not be lost. "We don't welcome you here." On the city wall, the lord of the first ancient city, Zhang Ming, shouted coldly, "I advise you to leave quickly, otherwise, don't blame us for taking action and killing all of you." His angry voice thundered, shaking the heavens and the earth. The powerful aura of the profound earth realm spread out like a mountain pressing down. It even directly triggered the power of the earth's veins, causing the earth to churn violently, like an earthquake, shaking the mountains and rivers, with a heavy momentum rushing towards them. The lords of the other 3 ancient cities were the same. They displayed their own oppressive aura, causing the heavens and earth to change color. The faces of the geniuses changed, and a hint of shock and anger flashed in their eyes. The battle from 2 days ago was still fresh in their minds. The strength of these natives was indeed extremely powerful, and most importantly, there were too many of them, far outnumbering them. Xiao Tianyi and the other nascent Soul Realm monsters had a slight change in their expressions, feeling a sense of fear. The other side had 50 profound Earth Realm experts, while they had less than 30, and they each had their own calculations and were not united. If it were a one-on-one battle, they were confident that they would not lose to the other side, but this was not a martial arts arena after all. The other side would not be foolish enough to give them such an opportunity. "We have no intention of starting a conflict, we just want to participate in the trial of the People's Steel." Xiao Tianyi responded in a deep voice. "Participate in the trial of the People's Steel." Lord Zhang Ming sneered, "The trial of the People's Steel is an internal matter of our Zhang family. What does it have to do with you outsiders? I know you all come from the Celestial Wonders realm, and you are the geniuses of the various forces in the Celestial Wonders realm. But, honestly speaking, with your meager talent, do you really deserve to participate in the trial of the People's Steel?" As soon as these words were spoken, the geniuses were immediately filled with anger, and their gazes towards Lord Zhang Ming were filled with coldness. Lord Zhang Ming chuckled, "Let me show you what a true genius is. Zhang Chen, step forward." Zhang Chen, dressed in black robes, walked out slowly. His eyes were deep like an abyss, and his body was wrapped in mysterious chains of the great Tao. The aura of the earth's veins surrounded him, exuding a terrifying atmosphere of the profound earth realm. "My son, Zhang Chen, has reached the 2nd level of the profound earth realm at the age of 40. With just a simple sentence from Lord Zhang Mingcheng, the mouths of all the geniuses were sealed shut. Outside the first ancient city, more than 300 geniuses fell into silence in an instant. 40 years old and already at the second level of the profound earth realm. Unthinkable. Even Xiao Tianyi, the saint child of the Grand Luo sacred land, who possessed the physique of an immortal and was considered an unparalleled genius, only reached the profound earth realm at the age of 50. Even so, he would still be considered one of the top geniuses in the entire celestial wonders realm. One can imagine how extraordinary this person who reached the second level of the profound earth realm at the age of 40 is. Now, not only the geniuses, but even Xiao Tianyi, Ji Yufeng, Lan Wuhai, and other outstanding individuals were filled with astonishment and unrest in their eyes. They considered themselves geniuses and had their own pride, thinking that they were superior to the younger generation. But what they witnessed today had truly shocked them. What kind of place is this? Who are these indigenous people? Zhao Fuyao looked at the people on the city wall, her eyes deep and sparkling. Her expression remained unchanged, as if the fact that Zhang Chen reached the profound earth realm at the age of 40 was not enough to move her. On the other hand, Zhang Ziheng, with narrowed eyes, seemed to recall something. Before he sealed himself, he seemed to have heard of a mysterious person with the surname Zhang appearing in the southern divine continent. No one could determine his background or his inheritance. Later, it seemed that he had stepped into an invincible power and reached the pinnacle of that era. Zhang Ziheng carefully recalled the ancient books of his pure Yang Sword Palace, and his eyes suddenly contracted. He remembered. You are the guardians of the Zhang family. Zhang Ziheng stared at Lord Zhang Mingcheng and said in a solemn voice. Zhang Mingcheng looked at Zhang Ziheng and couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect that someone in the celestial wonders realm would still remember my Zhang family. As soon as these words came out, many people remembered the records in the ancient books. Their pupils contracted, and their scalps tingled. Every few eras in the celestial wonders realm, there would always be an extraordinary genius with the surname Zhang who appeared, surpassing the profound heaven realm and pushing countless geniuses to the extreme, achieving an unparalleled reputation in that era. It turned out that all these geniuses came from here. A broken world, a small ancient city, could actually stably produce one genius after another, and without exception, they all reached the pinnacle. What kind of family is this? Even the long-lived families in the celestial wonders realm, with their thousands of years of inheritance, couldn't achieve this level, right? At that moment, everyone felt a deep sense of fear. Among these geniuses who reached the pinnacle, there must be void god-level powerhouses, or even true gods. With such existences backing them, even their own forces would not dare to provoke them easily. If they angered them and attracted those existences to exert pressure on their forces, they would probably be abandoned without hesitation. It's better not to force the issue. All the geniuses reached a tacit agreement in their hearts. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became awkward. And just at this moment, the appearance of a group of people broke this awkwardness. They were dressed plainly, with scars on their bodies, as if they were ordinary people who had never cultivated. However, each of them was riding on a formidable beast. Especially the leader, who only had half of his body left, which was extremely strange. The gazes of the crowd of geniuses all turned towards this group of people, filled with confusion. Where did they come from again? Moreover, among this group of people, one person's attire and aura clearly stood out. At a glance, it could be seen that this person is also a genius from their celestial wonders realm. How did he manage to mix in with them? Zhang Heng, I never expected that you're still alive. Lord Zhang Mingcheng's gaze fell upon the old man, his tone filled with mockery. The old man raised his eyes slightly, meeting Lord Zhang Mingcheng's gaze, then looked towards the other three lords. His expression remained unchanged, only saying calmly, in the trial of the human steel, I have a share as well. Naturally, Lord Zhang Mingcheng chuckled, without your share, we wouldn't be able to activate the will of the mountain god and awaken the human steel. The other three lords also showed faint smiles at this moment. This is why their four lineages only expelled Zhang Heng's lineage from the ancient city, but did not exterminate them. The human steel is divided into 5 parts, and each of their 5 lineages presents one piece. In order to awaken the human steel, all 5 lineages are naturally indispensable. In the trial of the human steel, they naturally have to give each other a quota. However, what can giving them a quota achieve? Their 4 lineages already control all the cultivation resources and opportunities in this world. Zhang Heng's lineage can only pick up what they left behind. Perhaps their cultivation speed is still much faster than the geniuses from Celestial Wonders realm, but compared to them, they are far behind. Don't waste words, open the city gate and let us in. The old man said coldly. You still have that foul temper, it hasn't changed at all. Lord Zhang Mingcheng shook his head and laughed. If you could change that foul temper, would I have had to behead you with a single sword back then? The old man's face immediately darkened, and a sinister aura surged around him. Zhang Zan glanced sideways, pondering. Zhang Heng is now only half a body left, it should be the doing of this Lord Zhang Mingcheng. Lord Zhang Mingcheng didn't mock the old man any further. After all, he was also a little tired of the human steel trial every time. Moreover, the geniuses from Celestial Wonders realm who came with them were still watching nearby. They are all Zhang family members with the same bloodline. It's fine to mock each other behind closed doors, but now, if they continue like this, it would be embarrassing for the Zhang family. Immediately, he waved his hand and ordered, "Open the city gate." Boom! The heavy city gate slowly opened, and the group of the old man walked in slowly. Zhang Zan naturally was among them. The geniuses were immediately dissatisfied. Why can this group of people enter and participate in the human steel trial? And they can't, especially that person, who is clearly a genius from Celestial Wonders realm. Why can he enter? Treating them differently, it shouldn't be like this, right? Zhao Fuyao, Henge, and other geniuses from the Eastern Divine Continent also focused on Zhang Zan, their eyes filled with deep doubt. This person gives them a very familiar feeling. This is an intuition from the depths of their hearts, without any basis. But they believe in their intuition. After all, reaching their level of cultivation, intuition can often save lives. This person is from the Eastern Divine Continent. Zhao Fuyao's starry eyes flickered, pondering for a moment, and suddenly came up with a guess. Could it be that this person is Zhang Chenkin in disguise? Henge, the pure yang sword, asked in a low voice to the other geniuses, "Can any of you tell which force he comes from?" The pure yang geniuses shook their heads one after another, indicating that they couldn't tell. Henge's sword-like eyes flickered, and he immediately affirmed, "He is Zhang Chenkin." Upon hearing this, not only the geniuses of the Eastern Divine Continent, but also the people of the Southern Divine Continent, all cast their gazes with confusion and incomprehension. Zhang Chenkin. The person mixed among the group from that side, is it Zhang Chenkin, one of the 4 esteemed members of the Zhang family? I asked Pure Yang Swordmaster, why are you so certain that it is Zhang Chenkin? A genius asked in a deep voice. Henge glanced at the person, coldly smiled. The geniuses of various sects in the Southern Divine Continent do not recognize this person. It is obvious that he is not a cultivator from the Southern Divine Continent, so he must be from the Eastern Divine Continent. Moreover, this person is alone, without any companions, besides Zhang Chenkin. Who else could it be? Of course, there is one thing he didn't say. He sensed the residual aura of the Pure Yang Sword Palace's geniuses among that group of people. Combined with the fact that he had broken 5 pieces of the sword token he used to contact his fellow disciples, it is easy to deduce that those 5 geniuses found Zhang Chenkin, but were killed by him due to their inferior skills. Upon hearing this, everyone nodded thoughtfully, once again looking at Zhang Zan with some unusual meaning in their eyes. At this moment, Henge chuckled and casually dropped a bombshell. Zhang Chenkin carries the luck of the Jixia Academy. In ancient times, that thing also carried the luck of the human race. In other words, Zhang Chenkin carries the luck of the human race, so he should be more favored by the human steel, right? If we don't eliminate this person, even if we manage to obtain the human steel, it will be difficult to gain its recognition. As soon as these words were spoken, it was like a huge stone had fallen into the water, causing a huge wave. The expressions of everyone changed in an instant. Their gazes fixed on Zhang Zan, emitting a chilling killing intent. Whether it was because they coveted the Jixia Academy or because they had to eliminate this obstacle in order to have a chance to obtain the human steel, in any case, Zhang Chenkin must die. It is worth mentioning that among this group of people, there is a small faction that is also secretly watching Zhang Zan. This group consists of only 3 people, but each one is at the profound earth realm. Especially the leader, whose aura is not prominent and is particularly low-key. Even when he stands there, he is always ignored by others. This person is dressed in Confucian robes, holding a feather fan in his hand. In the depths of his calm eyes, there flickers a profound light. He coldly chuckled, finally found you. Zhang Zan. He is none other than Mr. Puppet from the Yin-Yang Sacred Land. He brought 3 exceptional geniuses from the Sacred Land to the Southern Divine Continent, intending to kill the impostor Zhang Chenkin, seize the Jixia Academy, and avenge the humiliation of that day. However, this Zhang Zan is too good at running and hiding. Even with the tracking method provided by the Sacred Lord, he still couldn't catch up, and even let the other party enter the True God Realm. The restrictions of the True God Realm made it impossible for him to enter. Relying solely on his 3 geniuses is obviously not enough. Firstly, they don't know the tracking method, so they definitely can't track down Zhang Zan. Secondly, with their strength, it is not necessarily safe to face Zhang Zan. Helpless, he had to use a secret technique, separate a strand of his divine soul, possess one of the geniuses, and personally enter. But after arriving in this world, the tracking method became ineffective. They became like headless flies. Until now. Fortunately, Zhang Zan appeared once again in front of him. This time, you won't be able to escape. Mr. Puppet muttered coldly, a killing intent surging in his eyes. Of course, it is not only these people who have noticed Zhang Zan. 30 miles away from the first ancient city, Zhang Hong stood with his hands held high, bathed in divine radiance, with mysterious rules surging around him, as if resonating with this world. On his tightly closed eyes, there was a golden light flowing. He is using the pupil technique to explore and bury the abyss of the true God. The hammers of mountain shaking that he is searching for are within the abyss. Someone actually beat me to it. Zhang Hong saw Luo Xinglan's figure in the abyss and showed a surprised expression, but then smiled. What does it matter if they got here first? Only when the will of the mountain gods remains as awakened by the Zhang family, and the stone monument is fully awakened, will the abyss truly open. Arriving at the abyss now is just a matter of entering a little earlier than others. Immediately, Zhang Hong shifted his gaze to the first ancient city, hoping that the other party would quickly finish the trial of the stone monument and awaken it. And then, naturally noticed Zhang Zan, seeing him blending in with the indigenous peoples group and smoothly entering the first ancient city. An odd expression appeared on his face. This scene seems familiar. This guy has quite a few tricks up his sleeve, Zhang Hong couldn't help but exclaim. In his heart, he couldn't help but have a sense of watching a show. With this person around, the trial of the stone monument is likely to have many interesting changes. As Zhang Hong expected, because of Zhang Zan, or rather, Zhang Zan's former alias Zhang Chenkin, the various outstanding individuals and geniuses from the Celestial Wonders realm were now furious, their auras surging, and there was a clear trend of rushing into the first ancient city. Not fearing a lack of numbers, but fearing an imbalance. As fellow outstanding individuals from the Celestial Wonders realm, why can Zhang Chenkin enter while they cannot? The great Luo Saint Child Xiao Tianyi strolled out, standing in midair, looking at the 4 city lords including Zhang Ming on the city wall, and said in a solemn voice, since the trial of the stone monument is an internal trial of the Zhang family, why did you make an exception and let Zhang Chenkin participate? If you favor one and discriminate against the others, don't blame us for not abiding by the rules. Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai also walked out, their spiritual power surging, triggering the power of the earth veins, and pressing towards the ancient city with the force of the earth. The 3 geniuses spoke, immediately gaining the response of everyone present. They all erupted, their momentum stacking upon each other, an astonishing might that caused the heavens and earth to change color, with countless laws of the great Tao raging. You have 2 choices, either allow us to participate in the trial of the stone monument, or expel Zhang Chenkin. Swordmaster Chunyang Henge's sword eyes burst with the radiance of the sun, sword energy spread across the heavens and earth, and he said coldly, otherwise, we can just fight. Although our overall strength may not be as good as yours, with us here, you can forget about conducting the trial of the stone monument normally. That's right, the outstanding individuals all shouted, let us in, or drive Zhang Chenkin out. Their thoughts were simple and direct. As outsiders, if they couldn't enter, then Zhang Chenkin couldn't either. Not only could they not let him participate in the trial of the stone monument, they also wanted to expel him from the ancient city, losing the protection of the indigenous people. At that time, Zhang Chenkin would be isolated and defenseless, naturally allowing them to take advantage of him. Zhang Chenkin's Jixia Academy would naturally become theirs. On the city wall, Zhang Ming and the other 3 city lords glanced at each other and nodded in agreement. They also saw that Zhang Chenkin should be an outsider invited by Zhang Heng's lineage. After all, that lineage was gradually declining, and there were no outstanding individuals who could compete with them for the stone monument. Now, by expelling this person, not only could they appease the anger of the outstanding individuals outside, but they could also further suppress that lineage. Why wouldn't they do it? Immediately, City Lord Zhang Ming's figure flickered and stood in front of Zhang Zan's group, looking down at Zhang Zan with a condescending posture, wanting to see through his background. But because Zhang Zan had the concealment of the heavenly manifestation secret technique, he couldn't see anything extraordinary about him. City Lord Zhang Ming furrowed his brows slightly, feeling somewhat puzzled. This person was just an ordinary outstanding individual, not to mention competing with his son Zhang Chen. Even those outstanding individuals from outside the city were often inferior. Zhang Heng invited an outsider, and it turned out to be such a person. It seems, Zhang Heng's lineage is impoverished and destitute, unable to produce any decent external aid. However, this was not something he should be concerned about. City Lord Zhang Ming's cold gaze did not linger on Zhang Zan for too long. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that this person was involved in the conflict, he wouldn't even have noticed him. Instead, he looked at the old man and said lightly, "Zhang Heng, the trial of the stone monument is a matter for our Zhang family members. This person is not qualified to enter. Either you let him leave on his own, or I'll do it for you and throw him out. Zhang Heng, you have 3 breaths to make your choice." Lord Zhang Ming's voice was cold. The expressions of the crowd changed, anger evident in their eyes. If even the young king is not qualified to participate in the trial of the human steel, then who among the people present is qualified? Zhang Ming, you've gone too far. Zhang Heng's aged eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. His powerful spiritual energy surged within him, resonating layer by layer. Lord Zhang Ming smiled indifferently. The immense power of the profound earth realm pinnacle burst forth, directly overpowering the other party. The other 3 lords also stepped forward. They were all existences at the profound earth realm pinnacle, releasing their oppressive aura without reservation. They stirred the power of the earth, layer upon layer, heavy and immeasurable, like a towering divine peak pressing down on the world. Countless people felt a weight in their bodies, filled with unease. Even Zhang Heng's face darkened, feeling a sense of powerlessness. After all, he only had half of his body left, his physical body incomplete and his foundation damaged. Although his cultivation remained at the profound earth realm pinnacle, his true combat strength was much weaker than that of the 4 Zhang Ming. The situation immediately became tense. Outside the city, the group of geniuses revealed triumphant smiles. Their gazes towards Zhang Zan were like those towards prey about to fall into their trap. Swordmaster Henge of the Pure Yang Sword sect looked at Zhang Zan and spoke frankly, "Zhang Chenkin, give up struggling. You are now isolated and helpless. If you want to survive, there is only one path. Hand over the Jixia Academy." Henge chuckled lightly, his tone carrying a lofty attitude. "In the name of Swordmaster Henge, I promise you that as long as you hand over the Jixia Academy, I can guarantee your survival in this world." The geniuses and monsters around them frowned slightly, not pleased but also not saying anything. When Zhang Chenkin hands over the Jixia Academy, then it will be up to their own abilities. If Swordmaster Henge wants to ensure Zhang Chenkin's safety, that is his own business and has nothing to do with them. Mr. Kuei hid among them, staring at Zhang Zan, his eyes flickering as he pondered whether to first fight for the Jixia Academy or to eliminate Zhang Zan. The Jixia Academy was indeed important, containing countless Confucian and Taoist inheritances, and even an inheritance surpassing the saint grade. But, to be honest, he felt even more murderous intent towards Zhang Zan. Back then, he was played around by the other party, and that humiliation was like a thorn in his throat. Zhao Fuyao, the divine maiden of the Zhao family, had a starry gleam in her beautiful eyes, filled with interest in this Zhang Chenkin. She had looked up information about Zhang Chenkin beforehand. As one of the 4 Zhangs of the Zhang family, he was an unparalleled genius, even possessing the potential to become a monster. But to be honest, this level of talent was not particularly outstanding in her eyes, at least in her opinion, it was somewhat ordinary. However, the recent actions of Zhang Chenkin repeatedly broke her understanding and caused waves. First, he angrily killed over 1,000 people and forcefully seized the Jixia Academy, attracting countless geniuses and monsters from the Eastern Divine Continent to pursue him. Even under the almost carpet-like search of so many geniuses and monsters, he still managed to escape easily and quietly entered the true God's secret realm. And now, he inexplicably joined the indigenous people of this world and obtained the opportunity to participate in the trial of the human steel. If it weren't for Swordmaster Henge revealing his identity, he would probably have successfully completed the trial of the human steel. Moreover, even now, when he has become the center of contradictions, with the indigenous people of the ancient city wanting to expel him and these geniuses eyeing the Jixia Academy on him, he remains calm as if he is not involved. Zhao Fuyao honestly admitted that if she were in his shoes, she might not be able to remain so calm. But she had to remember that she was the divine maiden of the Zhao family, with the entire immortal Zhao family serving her. On the other hand, although Zhang Chenkin was one of the 4 Zhangs, it was obvious that the Zhang family did not attach much importance to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up alone until now. Moreover, his cultivation was only at the 7th level of the spiritual manifestation realm, clearly weaker than the majority of people present. Talent. Zhao Fuyao sighed inwardly, unexpectedly developing a sense of admiration. If given the opportunity, she wouldn't mind lending a hand and making them her own. She had a feeling that if she could subdue the other party, her path would become much smoother. Of course, she was even more confident that with her assistance, the other party would truly shine and achieve great fame. The time has come. Lord Zhongming looked at Zhang Heng and said calmly, "I hope you can make the right choice. As members of the Zhang family, I don't want to make a scene in front of outsiders." Zhang Heng sneered but instead looked at Zhang Zan. Though he didn't say anything, his attitude was clear: they would advance and retreat together with the young king. Stubborn. Lord Zhongming snorted coldly, extending his right hand towards Zhang Zan. With the weight of the earth, he intended to lift Zhang Zan directly and throw him out of the first ancient city. Why bother? Zhang Zan sighed helplessly, feeling quite annoyed. He really didn't want to attract so much attention. Everyone was peacefully participating in the trial of the human monument, so why couldn't he peacefully take the monument away? But he didn't expect those guys outside to not only make things difficult for him but also expose his identity. One thing he couldn't understand. He had the Tian Yan secret technique to conceal himself, even the venerables couldn't see through it. How did those guys outside recognize him as Zhang Chenkin? Fortunately, I wore an extra layer of disguise. Zhang Zan felt both frustrated and somewhat fortunate. A thought became even more firm in his mind. He needed to wear more layers of disguise in the future, the more the better, only then would he be truly safe. In the current situation, he couldn't continue to be so reckless. Alright, the epic skin, Zhang Chenkin, return within the time limit. Zhang Zan muttered to himself. Suddenly, a magnificent light burst from Zhang Zan's brow, and the human monument materialized, rapidly expanding and standing in front of Zhang Zan. It trembled lightly, causing layers of ripples to spread across its smooth surface, emanating an ancient and vast aura. It created a vast and boundless vision of a continent, suppressing Lord Zhongming. Boom! The entire first ancient city shook violently, as if an earthquake was occurring. Lord Zhongming was forced to retreat several steps, his aura in disarray. A surge of blood rushed up his chest but he forcibly swallowed it back down. He focused his gaze on the human monument standing in front of him, his eyes filled with shock and his expression constantly changing. The other 3 city lords, as well as the Zhang family members in the ancient city, were all the same. Looking at the human monument, their expressions changed, filled with astonishment and doubt. The human monument of the Zhongheng lineage. How is that possible? The human monument has never recognized a master, it's as immovable as a mountain. How did this kid do it? Could it be that he has subdued the human monument? This thought emerged in everyone's mind, and their expressions became even more unpleasant. It shouldn't be possible, right? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.